Chapter 1091. Liao Zhibing, Jingjie, and the others had seen the destruction of mountains and rivers in the Dian dynasty and knew the danger at this time. Although the princess consort appeared calm, they were still trapped in the yamen. Fortunately, the walls of the yamen were tall and sturdy. If it was an ordinary residence, the enemy would have already broken in. But even so, with the few people in the yamen, it was harder than ascending to heaven to fight against Lu Heng's people. They still wanted to capture Qin Yining alive, so they didn't attack. If they didn't care about Qin Yining's life and death, they were afraid that once the kerosene was used, none of them would survive. Wang Fei, you don't need to persuade us. We won't leave your side. Ji Yun used a handkerchief to wipe the blood on her cheeks and said with a naughty smile, "If Wang Fei can't bear it, you can reward us with a good meal later." That's right. Liao Zhibing and the 4 people from the Qingtian alliance nodded in agreement. With thousands of soldiers and horses outside, Lu Heng would soon know that she was here and would definitely order people to surround this place. He might even use any means to force them to hand her over. But in such a dangerous situation, the people around her didn't give up on her. Qin Yining's heart felt warm and her gaze became more serious. She had to think of a way out for the people around her. She couldn't let them lose their lives here. She didn't want to see Sakurai's tragedy ever again. Lu Weiguo took his attendants and private advisor to patrol the yamen. He ordered his subordinates to be on high alert and patiently repeated Qin Yining's analysis to those who weren't present. Huichuan is very close to the capital. Your Majesty will definitely act quickly and won't let the traitors off lightly. Reinforcements will arrive soon. With this thought, even if the danger was right in front of them, everyone braced themselves. At least they didn't have to fight endlessly. They could defend with all their strength until reinforcements arrived. Lu Weiguo respectfully bowed and said, "Wang Fei, why don't you take this opportunity to rest? This official will order people to prepare some food." Qin Yining nodded and walked to the side with Lu Weiguo. He asked in a low voice, "How long will the yamen's food last?" Lu Weiguo smiled bitterly and lowered his voice even more. "If we eat porridge every meal, everyone in the residence can only last for half a month. But if they had to eat gruel for every meal, the bailiffs and soap holders in the yamen would be weak all over. How could they fight a battle then?" It was as if they were trapped on an isolated island, surrounded by endless seawater. There was no food, no fresh water, no help, no way out, and no hope. Qin Yining lowered his long eyelashes and smiled, "There's no need to be so pessimistic. Your Majesty will definitely send people over as soon as he hears the news. If the cavalry of the 5 army barracks is mobilized, they will be able to reach the city in less than a day. It's right to eat sparingly, but there's no need to worry too much. In the meantime, we'll look for an opportunity to get some food." "Your Highness is right." Lu Weiguo thought about it and found it reasonable. He relaxed slightly and said, "This official will order the family to move out of the inner residence. Wang Fei, please wait a moment. There's no need for such trouble." Qin Yining smiled and waved his hand. "I still want to hear about the situation outside. It's perfect to live in the outer yard. Official Lu can just find a room for me to rest in." Lu Weiguo felt that it was inappropriate, so he discussed it with Qin Yining again. Seeing that Qin Yining had made up her mind and didn't seem to be angry about it, Lu Weiguo gave up the idea. He found a clean room and asked people to clean it, then invited Qin Yining and the others to rest for a while. Jingjie and the others were unwilling to leave Qin Yining's side and lived in a room next to Qin Yining's room. Qin Yining also arranged for people to take turns standing guard in front of Qin Yining's room to prevent anyone in the yamen from offending Qin Yining. As Qin Yining and the others were taking turns to rest, outside the yamen, Lu Heng hurried over with people. "Master, the Prince Zhongshuan's consort has been confirmed to be here." This subordinate saw her clearly just now. Lu Heng pursed his thin lips. His handsome and refined face no longer had its usual gentle smile. It's really been hard on her. How did she get into trouble again? Lu Heng's lips curved slightly and his smile was cold. Go, tell the people inside to serve the consort well. When I lead people to surround and annihilate her, they have to leave the consort's corpse intact. Lu Wenru and the other bodyguards who were accompanying him knew of Lu Heng's feelings towards Qin Yining and were all shocked. Lu Wenru hesitated and said, Master, don't say things out of anger. If the Prince Zhongshuan's consort really dies, I. Lu Wenru didn't finish his sentence. Everyone knew that he liked the Qin clan but couldn't get them. Everyone knew that he couldn't bear to kill the Qin clan and would regret it even if he killed them. Lu Heng laughed self-deprecatingly. It was clear how much of a failure he was. Everyone knew that his feelings for Qin Yining were deeply rooted, but she refused to accept it. Forget it. Take your people and go to the rich families in the city first. Lu Heng took out a list of names from his sleeve and handed it to Lu Wenru. After all, Lu Heng had been the county magistrate here before. He knew who was rich and who was rich like the back of his hand. Break into their homes and distribute their riches and food to the people in the city. Lu Wenru nodded. Yes, but if we encounter resistance, then ask them if they want their money or their lives. If they don't want their lives, then fulfill their wishes. Yes, this subordinate will arrange it immediately. Lu Wenru took his people and quickly left. Lu Heng slowly walked up the red stairs and stood next to the grievance drum. He casually picked up the drumstick and hit it a few times. As soon as the drum sounded, the people in the yamen immediately tensed up and tiptoed to the courtyard to look outside. There were even soapmen and bailiffs carefully observing the high walls, afraid that someone would climb over the wall and enter. Lu Heng said, Prince Zhongshuan's consort, I know you're here. I didn't expect you to wallow in the mire with the imperial court's lackeys. Have you forgotten everything that happened in the past? I really look down on this kind of behavior. Qin Yining had just washed her face and changed into a clean set of clothes. Her hair hadn't been combed and was only tied into a bun with a hairband. At this moment, she slowly walked to the door and frowned slightly. She didn't reply, but Lu Weigui spoke first. Rebels and traitors. You use the banner of the common people to rebel, but you're actually doing it for yourself. Aren't you afraid of being ridiculed by the world for doing this? Or do you think everyone is a fool? Lu Heng snorted. Official Lu is a stubborn person. You're about to die, but you're still so stubborn. Fine, I'll give you time to consider. Think about your wife and children. As long as you hand over Prince Zhongshuan's consort, I promise I won't touch your family. As long as anyone in the yamen doesn't resist, I'll let them live and let them live like ordinary people. You're daydreaming. Lu Weigui roared angrily. Chapter 1092. Lu Weigui clenched his fists and his entire body trembled uncontrollably. He gritted his teeth and his jaw was taut. It was clear that he was struggling internally. Qin Yining stood quietly to the side. Seeing Lu Weigui like this, his heart was filled with satisfaction. After all, it involved the lives of family members. Struggle and hesitation were inevitable. From Lu Weigui's point of view, Lu Heng's words were not inappropriate. She was indeed a stranger. If they could really hand her over and save everyone's lives, it would be a great deal. Qin Yining knew that the people around her were loyal. They would rather sacrifice themselves than hand her over when they were in danger. However, Lu Weigui and his subordinates might not think this way. What a good psychological attack, Qin Yining sighed softly. His long eyebrows furrowed slightly. There was understanding in his watery eyes, but there was also worry. If everyone else in the Yamen had this idea, then there would be internal strife before Lu Heng could make a move. Qin Yining's voice wasn't loud, but Lu Weiguo heard it clearly. He suddenly came back to his senses, loosened his clenched fists, and said loudly, "You traitor! The imperial court is in danger, but you don't serve us well. Instead, you take advantage of the situation to loot the burning house. You're despicable. We can't be bothered to listen to the words of a lowly person like you. Even if I die, I won't let you get what you want. Why bother?" Lu Heng smiled. The corners of his lips were full of mockery. "I thought Official Lu was a smart person. I didn't expect you to be a fool. Who do you want to serve? Is it the imperial court, the incapable ruler, or the people?" His voice clearly traveled through the door into the courtyard. Lu Weiguo was immediately stumped by the question. He straightened his neck for a moment before he roared with a flushed face, "Don't talk nonsense. I won't believe your words. It's up to you to believe it or not." Lu Heng said in a clear voice, "I'll give you time to think about it. If you can't hand over the Prince Zhongshuan's wife in 4 hours, I'll order people to storm the government office. Think about it carefully. Can you guys hold on? When the time comes, I won't show any mercy." After saying that, Lu Heng casually threw away the drumsticks, turned around, and walked down the red steps with his hands behind his back. There was no movement in the Yamen for a long time. Everyone, including Qin Yining, was listening attentively to the movements outside the door. All they heard was a gust of wind blowing in and the rustling of leaves, which made the surroundings seem even quieter and made them even more nervous. There was no sound from outside the door for a long time. Lu Heng seemed to really be giving them time to think. Only then did Qin Yining slowly walk over to Lu Weiguo. He smiled and said, "Lord Lu, you don't have to be so troubled. We'll do our best to hold this place. If we can't do it, there's no harm in handing me over." Qin Yining had already washed her face and wiped off the disguising ointment that Xiaoyu had given her. Her skin had returned to its usual white luster. Her plain clothes made her brows look like distant mountains and her lips look like they contained a pill. Her smile was as beautiful as peaches and plums. Lu Weiguo was stunned. His face reddened and he hurriedly bowed his head. He said righteously, "Wang Fei, don't be like this. We are paid by the imperial court and do our best to do things for your majesty. The way the one surnamed Lu does things is intolerable. It's our incompetence that we can't catch the rebels. If we hand Wang Fei over to the rebels, then other than being incompetent, we'll lose even the most basic morals. Wang Fei, please don't mention this matter again." Lu Weiguo's voice was loud and clear. The bailiffs who heard it also felt their blood boil. There were things that real men should do and things that they shouldn't do. Many people felt ashamed because of their moment of wavering. However, Qin Yining knew that the moment their hearts wavered, it was only a matter of time before they changed sides. This was human nature and they couldn't be blamed. It was time to think of a way out. Qin Yining exchanged some pleasantries with Lu Weiguo before returning to his room. Jing Zhou only left 2 people to guard the door. The rest of the people followed in. Ji Yun's face was pale. She lowered her voice and said anxiously, "Wang Fei, this servant thinks that the situation isn't good. If Lu Heng really leads people to attack the Yamen in 4 hours, I'm afraid that those people will really hand you over." "That's right, Wang Fei. I just carefully observed the surroundings and found that those people seem to be wavering. Why don't we take advantage of the chaos and leave?" Liao Zhibing said anxiously, "But it's harder than ascending to the heavens to escape now. The city is in chaos. Listen to the movements outside the walls. If there aren't 1,000 people outside, there are at least 800 waiting for us to escape." Everyone was at their wits' end. Qin Yining thought for a moment and said, "Now is indeed not the time to break out. If Lu Heng wants to capture me, he must have set up all the possible escape routes. He's just waiting for me to walk right into his trap. For now, it's safest to stay in the yamen." Qin Yining looked up at them and comforted them, "But I also know that even if Lu Heng captures me, he won't take my life. Right now, we're just waiting to defend the yamen. If we really fail and Lu Heng's people break in, you don't have to fight them head-on. I'll pretend to be captured. You guys just have to think of a way to follow me. You know my direction so that Wang Ye's troops can come and save me." Xiao Shui pursed her lips and said, "Wang Fei, we definitely won't hand you over to Lu Heng." "That's right, Alliance Head." Meng Qin was also anxious. "What are you saying? In this time of danger, can we just watch as you get captured? Even if we have to risk our lives, we have to. It's not worth risking your lives for such a small matter." Qin Yining interrupted Meng Qin and said in a low voice, "It's not a matter of life and death. If I get captured, I still have a chance to be saved. If you guys risk your lives, then you won't have a chance to survive. Don't forget your status. You have to listen to my orders. There's no need to discuss this matter anymore. Just do as I say." After Qin Yining gave these tough orders, she poured tea. Everyone looked at each other and wanted to persuade her, but they all knew Qin Yining's personality. Once she made up her mind, she wouldn't turn back. Moreover, they didn't have a better idea at the moment. In the blink of an eye, 4 hours had passed. The sky was completely dark. However, the city didn't turn off the lights when the curfew came. Today, the streets were especially lively. Lights could be seen shining in from the top of the yamen's high walls. The city seemed to be especially lively. There were no more cries or shouts from the commoners. Qin Yining even heard some people laughing. Lu Heng came to the yamen's entrance and asked with a smile, "How about it? Have you guys thought it through? Hand over the Prince Zhongshuan's consort and everything will be resolved. Otherwise, you'll become a wronged spirit under the knife. You should think about your families and consider whether it's worth it to lose your lives for someone unrelated to you." The yamen was deathly silent. No one said a word. Qin Yining led her people into the courtyard and saw Lu Weigui's wrinkled face. He clenched his fists in deep bitterness. The bailiffs were even worse. A few of them were holding swords in their hands, but their arms were hanging naturally. They had completely lost their will to fight. Qin Yining sighed softly. She knew that it would be difficult for her to escape from Lu Heng's hands today. She could either walk out on her own or be captured again after sacrificing so many lives. If she were to be captured, the former would have a lower price. Chapter 1093. Everyone was immersed in their own thoughts. It was a quiet night. Even though Qin Yining's voice wasn't loud, it still traveled into the ears of those outside the door. Lu Heng's heart stirred. He couldn't help but take a step forward until he was almost right next to the yamen's door. She agreed, she really agreed. He knew that Qin Yining was someone who knew how to judge the situation. She was kind-hearted and definitely wouldn't be willing to see others lose their lives in order to protect her. He knew that his threat would be effective. Lu Heng took a few deep breaths and did his best to keep his voice calm to avoid losing face. Prince Zhongshuan's consort is truly a smart person. Since that's the case, please come out. Wang Fei. Ji Yun was extremely worried and grabbed Qin Yining's arm. Jing Zhe and the others also surrounded Qin Yining, clearly intending to stop her. Lu Weigui and the others felt their faces burn. Seeing a woman step forward because of their momentary cowardice, they felt like they had been slapped in the face. If the woman could face this kind of situation calmly, why couldn't they? Could it be that they were worse than the woman? Wang Fei, you can't go. Lu Weiguo strode forward and said vehemently, how can we push you out at a critical time and use you to exchange for everyone's safety? Even if we live on in shame today, how can we walk outside in the future? Don't tell me that when people talk about us, they will think that we are the kind of people who push you out to take the blame while we hide behind and tremble in fear. Some of the bailiffs and soap operatives nodded. It could be seen that in this dilemma, some men chose to lose face and decided to go all out. But there were also people who remained silent. They clearly didn't agree with Lu Weiguo's actions. Qin Yining saw all of this and had her own thoughts. If she didn't go out, it was only a matter of time before this group of people in the yamen fought amongst themselves. At that time, their own people wouldn't be able to keep this place safe. At that time, if Lu Heng forced his way in, many people would lose their lives. It would be better to arrange everything properly and follow Lu Heng. Qin Yining knew how Lu Heng felt about her, so she was sure that Lu Heng would not kill her immediately. As long as she was still alive, there was still hope for everything. She believed that Pang Xiao already knew about her situation and would definitely come to save her immediately. Qin Yining gestured for everyone to stop talking, then turned to Lu Weiguo and said, Lord Lu, there's no need to say anything more. I've made up my mind. He then looked at Jing Zhe, Liao Zhibing, and the others. Just do as I say. The men clenched their fists and gritted their teeth as they looked at Qin Yining worriedly. Ji Yun said, since master insists, then this servant will go with you. Qin Yining shook his head and frowned. What are you going to do? Stay here obediently. No. This servant is used to serving princess consort. If I leave you, I really won't be able to adapt. Since princess consort has decided, then this servant will go with you. I can even serve you closely. I believe that Master Lu will not object. Lu Heng heard the faint voices outside the door and heard Ji Yun's words clearly. He couldn't help but smile. No need. I will arrange for a servant. You can come out by yourself. I won't let the people who follow you go lightly, so I advise you not to bring anyone with you. Otherwise, if something happens, I will start a massacre and cause you to feel sad. Ji Yun's face turned ashen. She gritted her teeth and cursed in a low voice. Qin Yining walked to the Yamen's entrance with a heavy expression. The guards immediately moved aside and looked at Qin Yining with admiration, but more than that, they felt guilty. Jing Zhe and the others caught up and followed closely behind Qin Yining. Lu Weiguo, the local district deputy, and Lu Weiguo's advisor all had solemn expressions but did not immediately stop them. Qin Yining knew that this was human nature. It was normal to seek benefits and avoid harm. She was not surprised by this scene. Also, the other party had not said that they would hand her over. She was the one who had suggested it. Qin Yining opened the door. As the wooden door creaked open, the gap in the door gradually widened. Qin Yining's beautiful and calm appearance was reflected in Lu Heng's eyes. She was dressed in a simple blue dress with narrow sleeves and a waist belt. Her black hair was loosely tied up. Lu Heng immediately took a step forward. If there weren't so many people around them, Lu Heng would definitely pull Qin Yining into his arms and imprison her so that she would not have any thoughts of resisting. But now was not the time. Qin Yining stood in front of Lu Heng. Using the bright lights, she could clearly see the situation in front of the yamen. Many commoners grabbed straw mats and made mats on the street corners. There were also people who tried to talk to the rebel soldiers patrolling the city. Qin Yining looked at Lu Heng with a smile that was not a smile. She smiled and said, I haven't seen you for a long time. Master Lu's thoughts have become more meticulous. You flatter me. Lu Heng could hear that Qin Yining was mocking him. He immediately became angry. What he hated the most was to make a fool of himself in front of Qin Yining. But when he saw her beautiful face and her graceful body, Lu Heng's anger disappeared. This kind of beauty was forced by him. It would be strange if she calmly faced him when she saw him. It did not matter if she made a few sarcastic remarks. Lu Heng turned around and ordered his attendants, "Someone, prepare a carriage." Lu Wenru hurriedly responded and quickly arranged it. Lu Heng's soldiers surrounding the yamen were completely silent. They craned their necks to see what the Prince Zhongshuan's consort that their master had coerced and bribed looked like. Qin Yining was unmoved and said, "Since Master Lu has agreed, you should be able to do it, right?" Lu Heng smiled as he looked at Qin Yining. His voice was incredibly gentle, "Don't worry. Since I have agreed, how can I not do it? Do I want you to hate me in the future? Since you are willing to follow me, I will not touch a hair on the people around you. You can rest assured." "That's good." Qin Yining walked towards Lu Heng. "Wang Fei." Ji Yun quickly chased after her but was stopped by Lu Heng's soldiers in front of the yamen. Lu Heng did not even look at Ji Yun and the others who were stopped in front of the door. He only looked at Qin Yining's graceful figure as she walked towards him. As for Lu Weiguo and the others, their faces had already turned purple. They wished that they could find a hole to hide in. At this moment, a loud sound suddenly came from the night sky. It wasn't an explosion, nor was it anything else. Instead, it was the muffled sound of something heavy crashing against the city gate. Lu Heng's eyes were cold and he did not move for a while. Lu Wenru quickly ran forward, "Master, it seems that someone is attacking the city from outside. This subordinate has ordered people to see who is coming." "So fast." Qin Yining was surprised and happy. Although she did not investigate, she guessed that it must be the imperial court soldiers attacking. Lu Heng had to lead people to resist the imperial court's suppression. He had no time to care about her here. Thinking of this, Qin Yining turned around and walked back. Chapter 1094. Qin Yining pursed her lips and struggled with all her might. In the eyes of outsiders, she was beautiful and delicate, but they were deceived by her appearance. Very few people knew that she was actually very strong. Lu Heng grabbed her wrist. Originally, he was afraid that he would hurt her, so he didn't use too much strength. Qin Yining took advantage of Lu Heng's unguarded head and suddenly exerted her strength. She stomped on Lu Heng's foot and took advantage of the pain to break free. Jingzhe and the others took advantage of the distraction of Lu Heng's subordinates and quickly restrained the imperial bodyguards in front of the door. Qin Yining quickly rushed into the yamen. "Close the door, quickly close the door." Liao Zhibing shouted loudly. Lu Weiguo also regained his senses and hurriedly shouted to close the door. The bailiffs cooperated with Jingzhe and the others and forced the people in front of the door to retreat. They quickly went in and closed the door. Lu Heng's foot was in pain from being stomped on. Even after Qin Yining escaped back into the yamen, he still felt that it was inconceivable that the duck that was at his mouth had flown away just like that. He had finally caught Qin Yining with great difficulty, but she had escaped so easily. "Fight! Fight your way in. Capture the Prince Zhongshuan's consort for me." Lu Heng's face was ashen and his voice trembled with rage. Lu Heng's subordinates heard the order and immediately rushed towards the yamen's entrance. At this moment, Lu Wenru rode a date red horse and quickly rushed over. He panted as he dismounted the horse. He was so nervous that he couldn't even speak clearly. "Master." "Not good, it's Jiziyu. The one leading the army to attack the city this time is Prince Consort Ji." When Lu Heng's subordinates heard that the person leading the army was Jiziyu, everyone's expression became serious. Some of the more timid ones were so scared that they almost peed their pants. Lu Heng's brows furrowed tightly. He was only stunned for a moment before he laughed mockingly. I should have expected this. He has always been willing to part with his imperial mausoleum. Separated by a door, Qin Yining was still panting because of nervousness. He could vaguely hear the voices outside the door. When he found out that Your Majesty had sent Jiziyu, he could not help but feel slightly relieved. His back was straight and fearless just now, but now he seemed to have lost his strength and leaned on Ji Yun. She never thought that she would be able to escape back to the door. If it weren't for the timely attack from the outside that distracted Lu Heng and his subordinates, she probably wouldn't have had a chance at all. Ji Yun smiled happily and shook Qin Yining's hand. Wang Fei, we can be saved. Duke Ding is here. With Wang Ye's friendship with Duke Ding, they would definitely be protected. Lu Heng, who was outside the door, suddenly turned to look at the Yaman's tightly shut door. His expression was solemn, and he was in a dilemma. This was his best chance to get Qin Yining. He was too careless and let them escape. However, if he didn't take this opportunity to attack the Yaman and rescue them, he was afraid that he wouldn't have a chance to attack again. The fatuous ruler was really fast. How did Jiziyu arrive so quickly? Why didn't he come earlier or later? Why did he choose to attack the city at this time? Could it be that even the heavens were obstructing him? Lu Wenru and the others looked anxiously at Lu Heng, waiting for his orders. The imperial court sending troops was not a small matter. Lu Heng brought a lot of people, but their opponent was Jiziyu, who was as famous as Pang Shao. In today's world, other than Pang Shao, only Eugene Khan could lead troops and fight against Jiziyu. Lu Heng wanted to immediately attack the Yaman and rescue them, but his rationality told him that he had more important things to do. Master. Lu Wenru was very nervous. He was afraid that Lu Heng would be impulsive and ignore the big picture. Lu Heng came back to his senses. He looked deeply at the Yaman and said in a deep voice, "Forget it. Perhaps this is the will of the heavens. Surround this place and don't let anyone enter or leave." Yes. Lu Wenru nodded. However, one of Lu Heng's subordinates, who was trying to curry favor with him, asked in a low voice, "Master, should we attack with fire? I don't believe that person won't escape. At that time, we'll be able to catch him." Lu Heng glanced at that person and shook his head, "No need. Just listen to my orders and guard this place tightly. Remember, you can't use fire, and you can't order people to break in." However, his brothers had already gathered here. They had been waiting for a long time for an opportunity, and now they finally had one. Lu Heng could see what everyone was thinking. He ordered in a deep voice, "Just listen to my orders." Lu Wenru hurriedly agreed. Lu Wenru led a horse over. Lu Heng mounted the horse and turned back to look at the Yaman again. Separated by a door, he naturally couldn't see the person inside. However, Lu Heng could almost imagine Qin Yining anxiously leaning against the door with his brows furrowed. This time, he had no choice but to consider the big picture. He had to give up this opportunity to obtain Qin Yining. He might regret it for the rest of his life, but for the sake of his foundation, he had no choice but to make this choice. The heavens weren't willing to help him. It was truly a pity. Lu Heng led his men and left on their horses. The remaining people could only listen to his orders and continue to surround the Yaman. They even had to be aware of the flies that were going in and out. However, they didn't understand the purpose of Lu Heng's arrangements. Qin Yining and his men leaned against the door. They heard the sound of horse hooves gradually fading away. The sound of chatter also weakened. They knew that Lu Heng had already left with a portion of his men. They let out a sigh of relief. Like Qin Yining, everyone looked as if they had just survived a disaster. Lu Weigui stepped forward in embarrassment and bowed to Qin Yining. He said guiltily, "Wang Fei, please forgive me. This official was muddle-headed and unexpectedly allowed you to go out and take risks. Fortunately, Duke Ding arrived in time and attracted Lu Heng's attention. That was why you were able to come back. Otherwise, wouldn't we feel guilty for the rest of our lives? If Ji Ziyu's Shui army hadn't attacked, Qin Yining would have been captured by Lu Heng in exchange for their safety. Even if they had survived, they would have been trapped in the shadows for the rest of their lives. This was because their lives were exchanged for by sacrificing a weak woman. Qin Yining could understand Lu Weiguo. He couldn't help but smile and say, "Official Lu's words are too serious. Aren't I fine now?" Although Qin Yining appeared to be magnanimous. However, in the following period of time, the attitude of the bailiffs and soapmen changed when they saw Qin Yining's entourage. Originally, there was still some contempt, but now, they were all attentive. It was obvious that they felt guilty. Qin Yining didn't care about this. He instructed Jing Ziyu, Liao Zhibing, Meng Qin, and the others, "Today, Lu Heng probably won't attack the yamen. Even if he wants to, he doesn't have the energy to do so. Everyone, stay back for the night. The rest of you need to rest well. Only by conserving your energy can you have more energy to face any sudden events." Yes. Everyone obeyed Qin Yining's orders unconditionally. However, after returning to the room, Ji Yun still asked worriedly, "Wang Fei, that surnamed Lu really won't send people to break in?" Of course not. Qin Yining was lying on the heated Kong bed by the window. Her body was covered with a thin blue cotton quilt. Under the dim light, her skin was as lustrous as snow. He already has the desire to be independent. Otherwise, he wouldn't have summoned all the commoners to the public square with such fanfare. At that time, he killed the chicken to warn the monkey. After all, the commoners who died were in the minority. Later on, even though I was separated by the door, I heard that he did a lot of robbing the rich to give to the poor outside. The commoners in the city didn't see him indiscriminately killing the innocent, and he even distributed money to everyone. Tell me, in this kind of situation, won't the commoners be very moved? Ji Yun thought for a moment and said, "They should be. Not to mention anything else, there are so many commoners. How can they not be jealous when they see the rich and powerful living in luxury and wearing gold and silver?" Lu Heng must have grasped this point. He gave these commoners some benefits. After all, those who are alive and have no relatives or friends with the dead are the majority of the county's commoners. That's right. He wants a good reputation. It wasn't easy for him to raise his reputation by robbing the rich to give to the poor. He won't barge in just because of a little girl like me. If he really killed the people in the yamen, it would definitely cause panic among the commoners. I'm afraid that his bad reputation will never be washed away. Ji Yun nodded. "That's why we're still the safest place for now." Qin Yining nodded and covered his mouth to yawn. When the incident in the city broke out, I kept feeling that there was an invisible thread that pulled us together step by step. However, it's worth reassuring that your family's Wang Yi didn't personally experience such a chaotic situation. Otherwise, I don't know how tired he would be with such serious injuries. Qin Yining's voice gradually weakened. Ji Yun lay on her side on the edge of the Kong bed. When she saw Qin Yining fall asleep in exhaustion, she also yawned and forced herself to close her eyes and sleep. At this time, something could happen at any time. They didn't dare to let themselves go. After a good night's sleep, Qin Yining asked Lu Weiguo about the situation in the city after daybreak. Lu Weiguo said, "The commoners in the city are probably so scared that they don't dare to go out. Last night, the incident in the city went on for an entire night and only calmed down in the early morning." At this point, Lu Weiguo looked a little hesitant and muttered, "But there's one thing." "What is it?" Qin Yining raised his eyebrows. Lu Weigui said. Lu Heng told the commoners that everyone was present when the imperial mausoleum was destroyed. Your Majesty would definitely kill everyone present. That's why Lu Heng had the soldiers and horses resist stubbornly against the people who attacked the city. The commoners all believed Lu Heng's words. Many people spontaneously went to help. Yesterday, when Duke Ding attacked the city, the cannons were blind and mistakenly killed many commoners who helped. Right now, the city is probably in chaos. Qin Yining immediately frowned. He knew that Lu Heng must have used this incident to smear Li Qitian's reputation. He wanted to defeat Li Qitian. As long as he had the ability, Qin Yining would admire him. But he shouldn't have taken advantage of the commoners' lives. It seemed that sacrificing a few commoners was like sacrificing an ant in Lu Heng's eyes. Was Lu Heng, who disregarded human lives to achieve his goal, still the Lu Heng she knew in the past? Princess. Jingzhe whispered, why don't we take advantage of the chaos outside to find a way to rush out? We don't know how Duke Ding is doing right now. If he doesn't pose a threat to Lu Heng and gives Lu Heng time to breathe, you'll still be in danger. Jingzhe said what everyone was thinking. Everyone was afraid that Qin Yining would be arrested, so they all nodded. That makes sense. We should seize the opportunity to rush out. Chapter 1095. Lu Weigui knew that Wang Fei was willing to ask him because she respected him. If she gave orders to him, he had to do it according to his status. This Wang Fei was not a normal person. She was Prince Zhongshuan's wife, and Ji Xiu, who was attacking the city, was Prince Zhongshuan's sworn brother. Wang Fei really thinks too highly of this lowly official. Lu Weigui sighed and said, this lowly official doesn't have any ideas right now. Based on what this lowly official says, it is a good thing to take advantage of the chaos outside to charge out. However, the yamen is heavily guarded and is not so easy to break through. If there are casualties, it would be a disgrace to the brothers. Qin Yining thought to himself, I've said everything to Lu Weigui. Isn't she thinking about this as well? The difficulties are in front of them and are all obvious. But Qin Yining immediately understood Lu Weigui's thoughts and couldn't help but smile and shake his head. These people who had been in the bureaucracy for a long time were unavoidable in their actions. Qin Yining did not make things difficult for others and said, there are many people outside. Right now, Lu Heng does not want to use lightning methods, so we are fine for now. We don't know the result of the attack on the city by Duke Ding's army. If Lu Heng becomes angry and kills us to vent his anger, or wants to take us as hostages, then with just our people, can we be a match for so many people outside? Lu Weigui shook his head and sighed. This is the case. Not to mention anything else, if the other side uses fire, we will all suffocate to death here. Wang Fei, do you mean to take a gamble? Qin Yining said, there is no other way at the moment. Everyone's expression was grave. They were afraid of the danger in front of them and the unknown future. But they also understood that if they did not take a gamble, they would probably die here. Qin Yining observed everyone. Seeing everyone calm down and think about the path ahead, he slowly said, we don't have to let the brothers risk their lives. I don't want to sacrifice anyone. Let's listen carefully to the movements outside. If the battle becomes intense, we may find a chance to charge out. Lu Weigui agreed and said, Wang Fei is right. When the situation outside the city is most tense, Lu Heng will probably send reinforcements. The defense here will naturally be relaxed. The bailiffs nodded as if they had seen a glimmer of hope. Qin Yining hesitated, fearing that they would underestimate the enemy and get injured or even lose their lives due to their misjudgment. He had no choice but to say, that may not necessarily be the case. If we escape, Lu Heng will be attacked from both front and rear, which is equivalent to his own backyard on fire. That person, when he has the heart to deal with outsiders, he will definitely ensure that there are no other hidden dangers. With that said, Lu Weiguo also felt that he had been too naive about the problem. But if that's the case, wouldn't it be harder than ascending to the heavens for us to escape? One of the bailiffs couldn't help but speak up. Qin Yining said, "Everyone, don't be nervous. It doesn't matter if we can break out or not. If we can't, we can still defend this place to the death. I won't let everyone die in vain." Everyone nodded, but it was unknown how many people believed Qin Yining's words. In everyone's minds, a person of noble birth like Wang Fei would not care about the lives of her subordinates. If it was necessary, they would be sent to their deaths as a scapegoat. Qin Yining also knew that empty words were not enough to win the trust of others. She did not force everyone to believe her, so she did not explain further. Everyone dispersed and returned to their own places to guard against Lu Heng's people attacking at any time. Qin Yining's group returned to the rooms that Lu Weiguo had arranged for them to rest in the outer compound. On this day, there would often be sounds coming from the city. It was hard not to hear the shouts of battle in a small county. In addition, the commoners believed Lu Heng's words and were afraid that the people of the imperial court would come to massacre the city. They all went to help defend the city. As a result, each family arranged for a few people to go. However, swords had no eyes on the battlefield. When Ji Ziyu ordered people to attack the city, rocks and arrows accidentally injured some commoners. How could the people in the city remain calm after hearing the news of their children's deaths? The entire Huichuan County was shrouded in the fear of war. Outside the yamen, the rebel soldiers that Lu Heng had arranged were still guarding the place. Jingzhe cautiously wanted to go out to investigate several times, but even with his outstanding martial arts, he couldn't escape the eyes of everyone under the tight security of sentries every 2 steps and sentries every 10 steps. Is there really no other way than to force our way in? Lu Weiguo said in disbelief when he heard the result. The atmosphere in the courtyard was gloomy. Even though the bailiffs and soapy officials took turns to rest, the high tension still made everyone extremely tired. They wanted to live, but now they were trapped here like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Sooner or later, there would not be enough food to eat. Sooner or later, Lu Heng would lose his patience and order people to attack. Under such circumstances, waiting was a kind of torture that made them mentally and physically exhausted. Those with weaker endurance even thought that it would be better if the other party attacked now. If they could not win, they would fight to the death. They would not wait for a knife to fall on their heads like this. Qin Yining would also walk around the yamen. Seeing that everyone was anxious and fearful, the atmosphere was oppressive and there was no fighting spirit, he could not help but worry. "Princess." Lu Weiguo invited Qin Yining to a secluded corner and discussed in a low voice, "Princess, why don't we organize people to attack now and try? What if we can escape? If this continues, I'm afraid that before we can successfully break out of the encirclement, someone will surrender first." Qin Yining was also worried about this. If someone surrendered while the others were unprepared and opened the yamen door, this situation was simply unimaginable. But if we want to rush out now, the odds are really not good. I'm afraid that some of our brothers will be sacrificed for this. Qin Yining was helpless. If we can't escape after sacrificing our brothers, things will be more difficult in the future. Lu Weiguo was so worried that he almost scratched his hair. It's really a dilemma. Qin Yining sighed, "Isn't it a dilemma? She came to destroy the imperial mausoleum. Although she did not do it herself, she achieved her goal. She helped Pang Xiao vent his anger. She just didn't expect that Li Qitian would really do the worst-case scenario that she had predicted. For the sake of the imperial mausoleum, he could ignore the lives of the people under the famine and even lead the army to war. How could such a person be a king? They could not rush out at this time, so they could only wait for the opportunity. But before they could find the opportunity to rush out, they heard many worried voices on the other side of the wall. How could this be? We were defending well at first, and Duke Ding couldn't do anything to our Huichuan County for a while, but the Titan suddenly appeared. Weren't the Titan defeated by Duke Ding? Now they suddenly came here. It must be premeditated. It's a good thing that Duke Ding doesn't care about attacking the city and concentrates on dealing with the Titan. What's so good about it? Is your brain filled with tofu pudding? If the Titan defeated Duke Ding, the next Titan to face the Titan will be our Huichuan County. Tell me, how much ability do we have to fight against the Titan? As soon as these words came out, the discussion outside the wall stopped abruptly, and the atmosphere suddenly froze. Qin Yining and others couldn't help but feel nervous when they heard this. Back in the wing room, Qin Yining paced back and forth with his hands behind his back. How could the situation become so complicated? This was Huichuan County, which was not far from the capital. Although the emperor of the previous dynasty only said that the capital was set at the capital in the north, for many years, there had never been a situation where the Titan directly marched into the capital. If the Titan appeared here, then what about the cities in the north of Huichuan County? Would they all fall into the hands of the Titan? If the Titan broke through here, then the Titan army would reach the capital in less than a day and attack the city. At that time, even if Li Qitian had the Tiger Talisman, he wouldn't be able to make the Tiger Army, the Dragon Army, and the South Pingnan Army rush over in the blink of an eye, right? Qin Yining didn't care about Li Qitian's throne at all. What she cared about was the people. If the iron hooves of the Titans really trampled over them, how could the people survive? After years of war, natural disasters, and man-made disasters, the famine had not been solved. If the Titan attacked, burned, killed, and looted, it would be too difficult to make the people, who had experienced many twists and turns, bow their heads and acknowledge an outsider as their master. Qin Yining was so anxious that the corners of her mouth started to blister. Qin Yining wasn't the only one who was anxious. The people inside and outside the walls of the yamen were also thinking about it. Even if they were on different sides, they were still de Zhou's men. How could they be willing to see the mountains and rivers being destroyed? However, they all had different identities and missions. At this time, they could only stand there and be anxious. Darren. Why don't we just charge out? If we die, we brothers will accept it. If we wait for death here, we will either be killed by the rebels or be killed by the Titans. This is too torturous. Yes, Darren. Once you give the order, we will immediately charge out without any hesitation. Lu Weiguo was also anxious. It was October, and his nose and temples were all sweaty. His collar was also soaked with sweat. With so many people waiting for his order, he really couldn't bear such a huge pressure. Let's discuss with the Prince Zhongshuan's consort first before making a decision. Lu Weiguo wiped his face and said, the Prince Zhongshuan's status is noble after all. She must have her own unique views. No matter how bad it is, it will be easier for us to survive if we follow her. Okay. Many people agreed. The private advisor and the local district deputy looked at each other and then followed behind Lu Weiguo to Qin Yining's room. After hearing Lu Weiguo's intentions and seeing the anxious bailiffs that Lu Weiguo brought, Qin Yining knew that the people's hearts couldn't be calmed down. She was also having a headache over this matter. Being trapped here, even if she had thousands of ideas, she couldn't use them. Liao Zhibing, Jingjie, and the others led people to guard Qin Yining's side and discreetly sized up the people in front of them. No matter how tense the situation was, their first task was to protect the princess consort. Just as the situation was tense, the district deputy suddenly opened his mouth. If the Titan attack, we only have one way to survive. Qin Yining and Lu Weiguo looked at this person at the same time. Lu Weiguo said in a low voice, "What do you mean?" Chapter 1096. Qin Yining didn't immediately express his opinion. He frowned and looked at the county magistrate, his eyes full of curiosity. Liang County Magistrate looked at Qin Yining without flinching. He was convinced that he was right and didn't feel guilty at all. He was sure that he was looking for a way out for his brothers. He was even willing to offend the Prince Zhongshuan's concubine for his brothers. Seeing him like this, how could Qin Yining not guess what he was thinking? "Shut up." Lu Weiguo stood up angrily and said, "Liang Qiuping. What do you mean? Do you want to defect to the enemy? Am I wrong? Sir, you don't care about the lives of your brothers. At the critical moment, you can order everyone to open a way for you. No matter what, you have to find a way to survive. But there are so many brothers. Are they all going to die because of your foolishness?" Although he was talking to Lu Weiguo, Liang County Magistrate's eyes kept glancing at Qin Yining. He was obviously scolding Qin Yining indirectly, implying that Qin Yining didn't care about the lives of others because he had a way out. Lu Weiguo was furious and shouted, "I didn't mean to disregard everyone's safety. If I did, why didn't I break out early? Why did I wait until now? Sir, since you didn't think so, why didn't you think more about your subordinates? It's because we need to think about it that we are talking about this here. I didn't make my own decision." "But what are you talking about? Defect to the Titan and then become a knife for them to kill the people of Dezhou. What else can we do? You nobles all have a way out, but we don't deserve to die." Lu Weiguo and Liang County Magistrate argued until their faces and necks were red. Both of them had their own opinions, but they had already made their opinions clear. Lu Weiguo wanted everyone to live, but he would never surrender to the Titan to deal with Lu Heng. Even if Lu Heng was a rebel, he was still a citizen of Dezhou. But Liang County Magistrate was willing to betray Dezhou in order to survive. Qin Yining didn't want to comment on who was right and who was wrong. He only said, "Both of you, listen to me first." The two of them glared at each other like fighting cocks. After a long while, they finally looked at Qin Yining angrily. Qin Yining said, "None of us know what the situation outside the city is like. Did Titan really attack them? We don't know whether Duke Ding really has no power to fight against the Titan, or whether Lu Heng's people can defend the city. It's too hasty to make a decision just by hearing a few words outside." Lu Weiguo took a deep breath and agreed, "Princess is right." Then, he glared at County Deputy Liang with disdain. Now, before the dust has settled and County Deputy Liang has already thought of surrendering to the enemy. Isn't this a little too early? You! Liang Qiuping was very angry, but he couldn't find any words to refute. Qin Yining saw that the two of them were about to quarrel again. He frowned and said, "You two are already fighting among yourselves before the situation is clear and you haven't thought of a solution. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by others? Isn't it too early for you to make a decision?" Lu Weiguo was stunned. Then, he gradually understood and his expression became awkward. County Magistrate Liang didn't think the same as Lu Weiguo. He was still suppressing the anger in his heart. He said with a mocking tone, "Princess, it's easy for you to say that. You have a noble status. Even if the city is breached, you can find people who will protect you with their lives. But what about us brothers? No matter how chaotic the imperial court is, no matter how the Titans attack, what does it have to do with us? We aren't the ones who usually eat, drink, and wear gold and silver. When something happens, we have to die." It had to be said that Liang Qiuping was very good at stirring up emotions. When they were quarreling, some of the bailiffs who came with them already felt the same way. Now, with a few words, he stirred up the emotions of the bailiffs and soaps. No matter if the imperial court treated them well or not, people were greedy. If they were given a little good, they would want more. They only felt that County Deputy Liang's words were reasonable and it was exactly what they wanted. Everyone was quiet at first, but when they heard County Deputy Liang's words, they all became more agitated. The feeling of being surrounded by enemies and facing death was too terrible. This feeling of having a knife hanging over your head and being at the end of the road was not something that people like them who were usually better than ordinary people could understand. Qin Yining was reprimanded, but he wasn't angry. Under the pressure of fear, people's hearts were sensitive and impetuous. At this time, even if she said more, it wouldn't have any effect. Instead, it would make people more determined. Qin Yining said calmly, "I won't let people die for nothing. Right now, we are surrounded and can't know the real situation outside. It won't be easy to know what they are planning. If you have doubts in your hearts, it won't be good to make a decision immediately. You can wait and see for a while before making a decision." Speaking to here, Qin Yining smiled mockingly, "I didn't bring you here. I don't have any right to order you. If you feel that you won't be able to survive by following me, you can do whatever you want. But there is one thing that I want to make clear." Qin Yining looked around and saw that everyone's attention was on him. He then said, "The Taytan people are not my people. For many years, they have been at the border. They have burned, killed, and robbed the people at the border. They have done all kinds of evil. When they hit the grain and grass, they hurt our people. Facing such jackals and wolves, if anyone has the intention to seek refuge, I won't let them off easily." When the men heard this, they couldn't help but be silent. Some people were reflecting, and some people were not convinced. Wang Fei says it so easily. You are of noble birth and live a luxurious life. How can you understand the suffering of the people below? Duke Ding is Prince Zhongshuan's sworn brother. He will come to save you at a critical moment, District Magistrate Liang said mockingly. You have a way out, and you don't care about the lives of your brothers. If you run away, how are we going to survive? If we don't seek refuge with the Taytan, are we willing to die? Qin Yining didn't know how there could be such a person who could speak so confidently of betraying the country. Qin Yining was even more lazy to persuade the other. Dogs only cared about the bones in front of them, pigs only cared about the food in the trough. They couldn't understand the human language of something that wasn't human. Qin Yining waved his hand and said, "Do as you please." Finishing, he turned and went into the inner room. Jing Jie, Ji Yun, and the others immediately returned to their original positions. This was the Yamen, Lu Weigui's territory. It wasn't good for them to send the guests away, but it was clear that they refused to talk. Lu Weigui hated District Magistrate Liang for saying this. After leaving the room, he strode to the study. District Magistrate Liang and his advisor talked in a low voice for a while before calling for the brothers to go back and guard. Inside the room, Qin Yining said in a low voice to Jingzhi, "Pay attention to arranging people to protect Magistrate Lu in secret. In such a life and death situation, there are many people who will do anything to survive." Jingzhi nodded and said in a low voice, "You suspect that they will act against Magistrate Lu. Maybe they won't kill Magistrate Lu, but will kidnap him and use him as a bargaining chip to negotiate with the Taytan. In reality, their best bargaining chip isn't Magistrate Lu, but me." Ji Yun thought of Qin Yining's energy in the Taytan and the hairs on her back stood up. "Princess, don't talk nonsense. You won't encounter those things again. We will do our best to protect you and won't let you fall into the hands of the Taytan." Seeing Ji Yun so nervous, Qin Yining couldn't help but pat her hand and said with a smile, "I know. So besides protecting Lu Weigui, you also have to think of ways to protect me." Jingzhi said seriously, "Princess, don't worry. Even if we risk our lives, we will protect you. We will protect you as well." Qin Yining waved his hand, "Why do I need you to do this? Moreover, from now on, if I don't have a chance to break out of the encirclement, I won't go out." It will be easier for you to protect me. Jing Zhe agreed with a smile. Seeing that Qin Yining was still able to talk and laugh freely in such a tense situation, he couldn't help but admire him. Even his own nervous mood was relieved a lot. Princess, do you think Duke Ding can win? Jing Zhe asked. Qin Yining said, there is no doubt about Duke Ding's ability. If there is a slight setback, it must be because he was caught off guard by the other party. However, as long as Duke Ding can catch his breath and has time to adjust, he will definitely be able to defend this place and not be invaded by the Titan. It was ridiculous. Just a moment ago, the people outside the city were attacking Huichuan County, but now they had to face the Titan directly. How did the Titan come here? Did they disguise themselves and enter Dezhou, or did they directly advance to achieve their goal? Or did someone come to their rescue? Qin Yining's expression became more and more serious when he thought of this. If there was really a spy, Ji Ziyu's actions would be difficult. He didn't know if Pang Zhao's injuries were better now. If he wasn't injured, he would have taken her back by now. Qin Yining's imagination ran wild. Unknowingly, 2 hours had passed. During this time, everyone was carefully listening to what Lu Heng's subordinates said outside the wall. They found that they were not the only ones worried. Lu Heng's subordinates were also worried about the Titan invasion. In the evening, the conversation outside changed again. Qin Yining. Duke Ding is probably an arrow at the end of its flight. He lost to his former opponent just like that. Didn't he sigh? If Duke Ding came with the Dragon Stallion army, he would definitely be able to beat the Titan until they cried for their parents. But now that we have been abandoned here, we are also going to cry for our parents. I don't know what it is like outside the city now. Qin Yining frowned. Ji Yun shook his head. Just as he was about to speak, the low voice of De Han, who was on duty outside, suddenly came from outside. Who are you? This is Huichuan County's Yamen. How can you come and go as you please? His voice was rough, but he heard De Han exclaim in shock, it's you. Please come in. The huge change in his attitude made Qin Yining feel puzzled. Ji Yun went to lift the curtain and saw a tall and thin figure walk in. He was holding a disguise mask that was as thin as a cicada's wing. He had delicate features. It was Mu Jinghu. When he was interrogated at the door just now, it was because Mu Jinghu had taken off his disguise that they calmed down and had a sudden change in attitude. Chapter 1097. When Mu Jinghu heard this, the smile on his face became unnatural for a moment, and he only said, speaking of which, we arrived at the same time. When Huzi, Bing Tang, and I returned to the capital, you had just set off. Meng Fox knew that you were coming to Huichuan and was worried about your safety, so I rushed over to see how you were doing. He shook the thin mask on his hand and smiled. I originally wanted to sneak in quietly, but Mr. Xie said that in the past, he insisted on making this for me. When I entered just now, I was almost recognized. Qin Yining smiled and nodded, vaguely aware that Mu Jinghu was deliberately avoiding the topic of Qiu Feishan and Brother Yan. But there were many people at this time, so it was not the time to ask in detail. When Ji Yun heard that Bing Tang and Huzi had returned to the capital, she said happily, Bing Tang has already returned? Yes, he was worried that I would be in danger, so Wang Yi left them in the capital, and I came alone. Ji Yun nodded repeatedly. Wang Yi is thoughtful, this place is indeed dangerous. But with Mr. Mu here, the princess's safety can be guaranteed. Mu Jinghu's ability was known by both the silver-masked spy and the people of the Qingtian alliance. When he came, everyone immediately felt relieved, as if even if there were thousands of soldiers and horses outside, they would not be afraid. This is good. With Mr. Mu here, we just have to cooperate, and we will definitely be able to protect the princess and break out safely. Jingzhi said happily. Liao Zhibing, Meng Qin, and the others also sighed a long breath. Qin Yining also felt relieved. He asked someone to make tea, and everyone sat down. Qin Yining asked, "How did you sneak in without being discovered? What's the situation outside? We have been trapped here, and we can only hear people talking about the war outside the wall. It seems that the situation is not optimistic, but no one knows the situation of Duke Ding. Is Duke Ding really defeated like a landslide?" Mu Jinghu smiled and said, "It's easy to sneak in here." The situation outside was tense, but it wasn't like the army was completely defeated. Before I entered the city, I went to Duke Dingguo's camp first. Although the Titans suddenly appeared and attacked Duke Dingguo from behind when he was attacking the city, he was caught off guard and lost a lot of soldiers. However, he was experienced in battles and responded in time. He still had the strength to fight against the Titan. Qin Yining couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Even if they couldn't stand Li Qitian's actions, De Zhou was still De Zhou, and the people were innocent. The last thing Qin Yining wanted was for the Titan cavalry to step into De Zhou, trample on their land, and kill their people. I wonder how the Titan came to Huichuan County. You should know that although this place is located in the north, it is still far from the border. Duke Ding didn't investigate clearly either. Mu Jinghu said, "When I went to his place, I only took a look. Because I wasn't very familiar with him, I was afraid that I would be suspected of spying on military intelligence, so I didn't ask in detail." Qin Yining nodded in understanding. Duke Dingguo is strict in managing the army. I think you have already put in a lot of effort to find out this information. As long as Duke Dingguo still has the strength to fight, it's a good thing. In the current situation, Duke Dingguo's army is stationed outside the city, and the Titan and Lu Heng's troops in Huichuan County are attacking him from both sides. I think, why don't we think of a way to solve the crisis in Huichuan County and let Duke Dingguo's people into the city? Everyone was silent. Princess's idea is good, but it's not easy to do. Lu Heng is buying people's hearts in Huichuan County. In addition, when Duke Dingguo attacked the city, he accidentally injured many people who went to help defend the city. Presumably, even if we let Duke Dingguo enter the city, the people will not agree and will still do something behind his back. After listening to Liao Zhibing's analysis, everyone present couldn't help but sigh. When it came to their own interests, the people's emotions were the easiest to incite. If they didn't hurt their own people, most people only saw their own benefits. Lu Heng smashed the big families in the city and gave the money to the people, successfully buying people's hearts. Then, he schemed to let the people participate in the defense of the city, which was equivalent to sending them to their deaths. However, the lie of "Your Majesty wants to kill them" made these people willingly go. Some of them were mistakenly killed by Ji Ziyu, which deepened their previous understanding of the imperial court. In such a situation, if Qin Yining wanted to cooperate with Ji Ziyu, it wouldn't be difficult. With Mu Jinghu, Lu Heng's troops guarding outside the yamen wouldn't be a match for them. However, how could the people's emotions be appeased? Just like how Lu Heng and Ji Ziyu had to keep a close watch on the yamen when they were fighting, afraid that they would come out and stab them in the back. When Ji Ziyu led the troops to defend the city against the Titan, he was most afraid that the people would stab him in the back. Qin Yining sighed, "I came here with anger and lost my cool first. I didn't notice the abnormality in the city, which is equivalent to stepping into the trap that Lu Heng had planned for a long time. He set up such a big trap to start a war. That's right. He destroyed the imperial mausoleum, incited the people's emotions, and led Your Majesty's people to come and suppress them." Liao Zhibing suddenly said, "Princess Consort, the timing of the Titan people arriving here is too coincidental. Do you think, is it possible that Lu Heng deliberately led the Titan people here?" Qin Yining also thought of this. If the northern cities are fine, then it's fine. If not, then Lu Heng would be a sinner who colluded with foreign enemies. Qin Yining and Lu Heng had different thoughts. People could be selfish for their own sake, but they couldn't lose their bottom line. If they hurt the innocent people to achieve their goals, wouldn't they feel guilty when they stood on top of the corpses of the people in the future to enjoy glory and wealth? The atmosphere in the room became oppressive again. Qin Yining ordered everyone to go outside and listen to what Lu Heng's rebel troops had to say. When there was no one else in the room except for Ji Yun, Qin Yining asked, "Young Master Mu, did something happen to Boss Zhou? Don't mention that woman." Mu Jinghu's face instantly darkened. Qin Yining was shocked. Mu Jinghu's personality wasn't gentle, but he treated his wife well. Qiu Feishan was the wife that Mu Jinghu snatched away, and she worked hard to give birth to brother Yan for him. When Qiu Feishan fell ill, Mu Jinghu was so anxious that he hurriedly brought Bing Tang to treat Qiu Feishan. How did it become like this now? Qin Yining deliberated and said, "Did they quarrel? It's normal for couples to quarrel. Wang Yi and I also quarreled, but we let it go after a while. Boss Zhou is a woman, but she's being manipulated by her family. She has to manage the four-way shop, take care of brother Yan, and deal with Qiu Yuanqing. She's still sick, you have to understand her." "Understand? I don't want to see her again for the rest of my life." Mu Jinghu gritted his teeth, got up, and left in a huff. Qin Yining looked at Mu Jinghu's back in shock, and didn't know what to do for a moment. Ji Yun was also surprised, and said after a while, "Young Master Mu also has such a temper. What's wrong?" Qin Yining shook his head, and there was some worry in his eyes. Although Qiu Feishan's position was unclear at the beginning, and her marriage with Mu Jinghu was also forced at the beginning, and it was mixed with a lot of benefits. But she could see that Qiu Feishan really had feelings for Mu Jinghu, and Mu Jinghu liked Qiu Feishan even more. She hoped that Mu Jinghu's family could be harmonious and happy. Now that she saw Mu Jinghu like this, he must have a knot in his heart, and she had to think of a way to reconcile with him. Another night passed, and the next morning, Jingzhi, Liao Zhibing, and the others heard bad news. "Princess, Duke Dinggua's army is fighting with the Taitan, and it seems that they are losing. The people in the city are now panicking, and the Taitan have defeated Duke Dinggua. Won't they attack the city next? What should the people do then?" Qin Yining heard this and immediately stood up, and said with a serious face, "No, we have to think of a way as soon as possible. Ji Lan is outside the city with the soldiers and horses, and they are all from Dezhou, but the people of Huichuan County are dragging him down. How can this go on?" Qin Yining immediately led the people to find Lu Weigui. Lu Weigui didn't bring his private advisor and deputy county magistrate with him, so Qin Yining sent people to protect Lu Weigui. When he found that the deputy county magistrate had the intention to kill Lu Weigui and take his head to the Taitan, he immediately tied him up. Lu Weigui was very grateful to Qin Yining, so when he saw Qin Yining, he was very grateful, and his attitude was more respectful than before. Qin Yining told him all the information she received. Lu Weigui's face was wrinkled like a bitter gourd. "Princess, what should we do? This lowly official is too useless. This lowly official should rush out with a sword and take down Lu Heng, that rebel who can't do anything right. But this lowly official is just a scholar." Qin Yining said, "Official Lu has already done very well. But now is not the time for us to defend the yamen. I think we should rush out, occupy the city gates, and open the double doors to let Duke Dinggua's troops in. Otherwise, if Duke Dinggua is defeated, Dezhou will have one less main force to fight against the Taitan. This is no longer a simple matter of pacifying a rebellion, but it involves the throne of Dezhou." "Yes, your highness is right." Lu Weigui wiped his sweat. Although he was afraid, he still said righteously, "This lowly official will gather people and think of a way to rush out. Even if we have to risk our lives, we can't let the Titan succeed. Seeing Lu Weigui's attitude, Qin Yining relaxed a lot. As long as he didn't oppose and didn't drag them down, there was a chance for things to turn around. Qin Yining smiled comfortingly and said, "Official Lu doesn't need to worry. Wang Yi has arranged for a master." He pointed behind him to Mu Jinghu, who had already disguised himself as an ordinary person. "This chivalrous man is very skilled in martial arts. Those guards outside will be taken care of by him in just a few moves. If Official Lu agrees, we will gather our brothers. When this chivalrous man takes care of some people outside, we can take the opportunity to rush out and think of a way to capture Lu Heng, occupy the county, and open the city gates to let Duke Dingguo in." Lu Weigui's eyes widened when he heard this. This chivalrous man can resist the hundreds of people outside the yamen by himself. Mu Jinghu didn't say anything and turned to go out. Chapter 1098. Lu Weigui was still in a daze. This chivalrous man looked ordinary, but his temper was unusual. He turned around and left without saying a word. He did not even give him time to arrange for people to help him. Was this person too stubborn, or was he too capable that he did not care if there were people to help him? Lu Weigui was puzzled, but he could not show it on his face. He immediately ordered his subordinates to follow him. Qin Yining was the same as Lu Weigui. He knew that he would only cause trouble if he went out. Therefore, he waited there quietly, holding his breath as he listened to the commotion outside the wall. Soon, a wave of scolding came from the other side of the wall. "Damn it! Where did this bastard come from? This is the place that the Lu family's head has circled. Not even a bird can fly out. You guys must have eaten a bear's heart and leopard's guts. Don't tell me you don't want to live anymore. Go back obediently and we might spare your lives. If you don't listen to us and have the guts to barge in, we can only kill you." Qin Yining's heart was in his throat when he heard the other party's words. Mu Jinghu's martial arts were excellent, but the other party had the advantage in numbers. Qin Yining did not distrust Mu Jinghu, but the incident of killing an old master with random fists was not an exception. She did not hear Mu Jinghu's reply, but in the blink of an eye, she heard the sounds of fists and feet colliding and screams coming from outside. Ji Yun was curious and excited. She wanted to watch the show, but she was worried about Qin Yining's safety. Qin Yining saw her itchy look, as if a kitten had scratched her heart. He could not help but laugh and say, "Go take a look. Come back and tell me the situation." Ji Yun's face turned red, but she immediately nodded. She ran to the bottom of the wall with light steps, found a ladder, and climbed up to see the situation outside. With this look, Qi Yun was so shocked that he was dumbfounded. Wherever Mu Jinghu stood, he could only see people falling like vegetables. The bailiffs and soap men from the yamen followed behind Mu Jinghu with their swords in hand. They did not even have the chance to attack. Although Lu Heng had arranged for a large number of rebels, they could not withstand Mu Jinghu's suppression in terms of martial arts. In just a short while, they had already lost their will to fight and were showing signs of defeat. Ji Yun hurriedly told Qin Yining what she had seen. Qin Yining's fair face blossomed into his first brilliant smile in many days. "Very good. We can't let this opportunity slip by. Let's take this opportunity to rush out." He turned around and instructed Lu Weigui, "Order someone to stay behind and keep the courtyard door properly. Don't let the women and the family go out easily and arrange for people to protect them." "Yes, thank you for your concern, Your Highness. This lowly official will arrange it now." Lu Weigui nodded excitedly. After giving some instructions, he led his men and followed Qin Yining's group out of the yamen. At this time, rebel soldiers were scattered all over the ground. Not a single one of them was alive. The smell of blood was very pungent. Qin Yining frowned slightly, but his expression was still calm. However, Lu Weiguo was not as calm as Qin Yining. In all his life, this was the first time he had seen such a scene of corpses strewn all over the ground. In addition, the rebel soldiers had their necks broken, their lumbar vertebrae broken, and their chests torn open. There were all kinds of miserable deaths. If it wasn't for his face and the fact that there were so many people staring at him, Lu Weiguo would have jumped up in anger. Everyone was silent at this moment. They followed Qin Yining and moved forward. They could not help but sigh in their hearts. Fortunately, this chivalrous man was one of them. If he was someone arranged by Lu Heng, how could they still have the chance to defend the yamen? They would have been torn apart long ago. Qin Yining naturally knew of Mu Jinghu's abilities, but it was the first time she had seen such a cruel method of killing opponents. Mu Jinghu had a flexible sword at his waist, but he did not use it. He insisted on using his hands. Such a violent and hearty killing not only made the enemy tremble in fear, but also made his own people feel anxious. Qin Yining suddenly remembered that she had asked Mu Jinghu about Qiu Feishan. At that time, Mu Jinghu must have been very annoyed, right? Perhaps he was just using this opportunity to vent his emotions. Qin Yining sighed. The quarrel between the young couple could actually make Mu Jinghu have such a big reaction. Since ancient times, heroes have a weakness for the charms of beautiful women. While her thoughts were running wild, the group had successfully followed Mu Jinghu out of the yamen. At this time, the rebel soldiers arranged by Lu Heng had already fled for their lives. Mu Jinghu grabbed a handkerchief to wipe the bloodstains on his hands, threw it away casually, and walked towards Qin Yining. Lu Weiguo and the others behind Qin Yining all took a step back, their eyes full of fear. Mu Jinghu did not seem to care about other people's gazes, and was too lazy to care about others. He only asked Qin Yining, "Are we going to seize the city gate now?" Qin Yining nodded, her eyes full of worry. She wanted to ask Mu Jinghu what happened to Qiu Feishan, but after opening her mouth, she swallowed her questions. Mu Jinghu seemed to be aware of Qin Yining's thoughts, but his expression was covered by a thin mask. Mu Jinghu turned and strode towards the city gate. Lu Weiguo immediately shouted at his subordinates, "Hurry up and follow him. Take back the city gate and resist the Titan. If the Titans enter the city, the people in the city will be in danger." The subordinates naturally knew this. Everyone was from Huichuan, and their families were in the city, so they were naturally the most concerned about the survival of the people here. Everyone rushed towards the city gate in a mighty manner. At this time, the people were hiding in their homes, and even if they heard the commotion outside, few had the courage to come out and check. When the people near the yamen smelled the thick and pungent smell of blood in the air, they were really scared out of their wits. Only the strong men who were instigated by Lu Heng to defend the city against the imperial army were still guarding the city gate fearlessly. Seeing that the city gate was right in front of them, Qin Yining said to Mu Jinghu, who was walking in front of him, "Don't kill the people here. If we anger the people, it will be inconvenient for us to do anything in the future. Also, we need to find a way to find out Lu Heng's whereabouts. Once we capture him, we will be able to find out his deployment and find out what cooperation he has with the Titan." Mu Jinghu nodded, "I will first help these people to take down the city, then I will go and find Lu Heng's whereabouts. Lu Heng has many experts around him, you have to be more careful." "Don't worry, this won't be a problem for me." Mu Jinghu smiled, turned around, and stepped onto the stairs. When the subordinates saw the powerful warrior rushing in front, they instantly felt their blood boil and their lungs hurt. One by one, they drew their swords and rushed up. Qin Yining was carefully protected by Ji Yun, Jing Zhi, Liao Zhibing, and the others. From here, they could not see the situation on the city wall, but they could hear the screams and cries of alarm. Not long after, Qin Yining saw Mu Jinghu quickly walking down the stairs. It's already over. Mu Jinghu nodded. We have already captured the ordinary people on the city wall and taken back the city gate. However, I feel that the current situation is not right. The situation is not right. Qin Yining's voice was slightly raised. Mu Jinghu said, it was too easy to take back the city gate. There are not many guards arranged by Lu Heng for such an important place. Most of them are the strong men captured from the city and the ordinary people who volunteered to defend the city. Qin Yining's gaze turned sharp. When did this situation start? It started when the Taitan people launched a sneak attack on Duke Ding. Qin Yining lowered her eyes, her long eyelashes like crow feathers casting 2 rows of small fan-like shadows on her fair face. Her cherry lips were pale, and after a long time, she said, I have a bad guess. I'm afraid that the cities in the north are no longer safe. At this time, Lu Weiguo was leading people to clean up the mess on the city wall. Qin Yining saw that only his subordinates and Mu Jinghu were around, so he said in a low voice, Lu Heng obviously withdrew his main forces after the Taitan arrived. The people guarding the city wall are all abandoned pawns. His real goal is not to destroy the imperial mausoleum, but to lure the Taitan people here. Silence was like a winding vine, wrapping everyone in it tighter and tighter. They could not imagine that the head of the Lu family, the former Zhongyibo, who was a noble gentleman, would actually do something like luring the Taitan people into Dezhou's territory without caring about the lives of the ordinary people. In Qin Yining's heart, this person used to have a noble character, but now, his image was completely shattered. One should not be so selfish as to ignore the lives of others in order to achieve one's goal. Moreover, Lu Heng was not just scheming against one life. From the moment he blew up the imperial mausoleum, no, perhaps even earlier, he wanted to use the blood of the innocent people to repay the lives of the Lu family members who were killed by Li Qitian. Princess Consort, what should we do now? Ji Yun said with some apprehension, this servant feels a little gloomy here. Do you think that Lu Heng will come back with his men? He purposely lured us here so that he could capture you. He won't. Qin Yining said, his goal has been achieved, and the people in the city have been used by him enough. He won't make a move in the short term. He is a smart person. He understands the benefits of adding firewood to the left and right and then sitting on top of the mountain to watch the tigers fight. At this moment, Lu Weiguo's excited voice came from the city gate tower. He shouted loudly, open the city gate and send scouts to report to Duke Ding that Huichuan County is now under initial control. Duke Ding, please lead the army into the city. Yes. Everyone responded, and someone immediately went to the barracks outside the city to inform Ji Ziyu that he could enter the city at any time. Qin Yining looked at the group of people led by Lu Weiguo down the city wall like tied dumplings. His originally worried heart gradually relaxed. Princess Consort, these are the people in the city. How should we deal with them? Lu Weiguo came in front of Qin Yining and bowed respectfully. Qin Yining raised his eyebrows and walked slowly in front of the 100 people. Seeing that most of them were able-bodied men and a small number of women and old people, he smiled and said, did you help Lu Heng's rebel army to deal with Duke Ding, who was sent by the imperial court to quell the rebellion? The people all lowered their heads and pursed their lips without saying a word. It was obvious that the emotions stirred up by Lu Heng's words had not yet subsided. Chapter 1099. The commoners made up their minds not to speak. They looked at Qin Yining with eyes full of fear and resentment. Obviously, they still couldn't control their emotions. They saw Qin Yining and his people as the lackeys of the imperial court. Qin Yining said with a sullen face, blowing up the imperial mausoleum was Lu Heng's fault. Originally, if His Majesty wanted to punish her, it would be Lu Heng's fault for plotting against the imperial mausoleum. The Lu family had already rebelled. What does blowing up the imperial mausoleum have to do with you? But he is very cunning. He dragged all the commoners in the county down with him to distract your majesty's attention. This person is too despicable. Some of the commoners were shaken when they heard this. Some of them were still stubborn and didn't seem to be moved. There were even some people who were dissatisfied with Qin Yining's words. They said loudly, "You are a member of the imperial court. Of course, you speak for the imperial court. Your Majesty doesn't care about the lives of the commoners. He was willing to spend money to build the imperial mausoleum, but he was unwilling to give us food. Even if the imperial mausoleum was blown up, it wouldn't be pitiful for such an incapable ruler. But you are all innocent." Qin Yining frowned bitterly and said loudly, "You were dragged into something that had nothing to do with you. You were caught, but where is the person who dragged you into this? He had long since escaped without a trace. He put gunpowder in the gun and let you light the fire. In the end, he was clean and relaxed. You are all honest people, but you were all used by him." The commoners looked at each other. They were all shaken. "Look around. Are the people who were caught all the commoners you know? How many rebels are there in the Liu family? They only left a small number of people here. The ones guarding the city gate are you, who are supposed to be protected." Qin Yining walked quickly toward the city gate. He pointed outside the city and said, "But do you know what you are guarding? You don't know that the Taitan army is already outside the city. The Duke of Ding that you think is here to kill you is leading the soldiers you hate to fight a bloody battle. They are using their lives and blood to resist the Taitan attack. Don't they have horses? Can't they escape? They can. But why didn't they run away? It's all for you commoners. Yet, all of you defended the city gates to the death and did not allow the soldiers who were protecting you to enter the city. Seeing that they had nowhere to retreat, they could only fight to the death with the Taitan. Fellow villagers, do you think this is an act of benevolence? Everyone has been dutiful for generations. However, because of Liu Heng's lies, you were used by him to do such an unrighteous thing. You even got yourselves and your family involved in the rebellion. You don't care about your own lives, and you don't care about the evaluation of the people of Huichuan County. Don't tell me you don't care about the lives of your family members?" There was complete silence in front of the city gate. Qin Yining's sonorous and forceful questioning was like the beating of a drum in their hearts. Originally, he was still a little angry, but now, only regret and despair were left. We. A man opened his mouth with a gloomy face. "Princess, please show us a way out." The man fell to his knees with a thud. Since someone had taken the lead, those who didn't want to beg for mercy because of their reputation finally lost their psychological burden and knelt down one by one. Qin Yining had a very good reputation in Huichuan County during this period of time. Moreover, he had once acted benevolently under the pressure of Madame Liu. Furthermore, he had the good reputation that the Pang Shao had accumulated over the years. When these people calmed down and thought about this, they really felt regret and fear. They kept kowtowing non-stop. Qin Yining shook his head and said, "Everyone was deceived by words and committed treason. Wouldn't you be considered a traitor to the imperial court if you colluded with the rebels? Do you know how the imperial court deals with traitors? Kill them." Someone stammered. The scene was silent for a moment. Then, everyone started sobbing in despair. "No, we don't want to die." We were also muddle-headed for a moment. "Princess, please have mercy, please have mercy." Everyone was finally afraid. They kept kowtowing and begging for mercy. Lu Weigui looked at the people who were still indignant when they were tied up on the city wall. Now, because of Qin Yining's words, they obediently confessed. When he came closer, he finally realized the power of the Prince Zhongshuan's consort. Liu Heng incited people to achieve his goal. The Prince Zhongshuan's consort also had the ability to do so. Lu Weigui's respect for Qin Yining increased a lot. He came to Qin Yining's side and bowed. He said in a low voice, "Princess, should we open the city gate now, or should we order people to go out and scout first?" Qin Yining looked back and smiled. "What does official Lu think?" Lu Weigui said seriously, "For safety's sake, this official thinks that we should scout first and get in touch with Duke Ding." Official Lu is right. Qin Yining nodded in agreement. "Let's do as you say." Lu Weigui agreed. His heart was especially warm. He guessed that Qin Yining might have thought the same. However, she gave him the opportunity to speak. This was equivalent to giving him the credit for quelling the rebellion and welcoming Duke Ding and his entourage into the city. Although a woman didn't have much use for this kind of credit, she didn't want to walk the path of an official. But she was willing to give him the credit. This was a great respect and recognition for him. Lu Weigui's heart was filled with gratitude and admiration. After Qin Yining arranged this matter for Lu Weigui, he looked at the common people. "Everyone, stand up. If I wanted to kill you all, I would have done it on the city gate tower. Why would I waste so much effort to have you all come here to listen to me say this? Everyone is an ordinary person. This time, you all suffered an unexpected disaster. Everyone has old and young people in their families. I really can't bear to see you all being used without knowing it." The common people raised their heads and looked at Qin Yining. They hesitated and didn't dare to stand up. Qin Yining sighed. "Everyone, please stand up. I will do what I say. I will definitely protect you in front of Duke Ding. However, everyone has to be clear about the current situation. The Taitan soldiers are now at the city gate. Duke Ding is stubbornly resisting. If the Taitan people step into Huichuan County, everyone should think about the consequences." The common people finally calmed down and realized the seriousness of the matter. The leading man stomped his feet and lamented regretfully, "We were wrong. We were really muddle-headed. The Taitan people are outside. Everyone has long heard about the lives of the common people at the border who have been deprived of grain by the Taitan for years. How could we be so muddle-headed now? Could it be that Lu Heng has black magic?" Everyone was filled with regret. They wished they could beat their chests and stamp their feet. Qin Yining saw that more than half of his goal had been achieved, so he continued to work hard. "For the sake of our families, Huichuan County must be defended. Your Majesty originally ordered Duke Ding to capture the rebels. Because it was to capture Lu Heng and a small group of people, he didn't send many soldiers. However, knowing that the Taitan people have come here, Your Majesty will definitely arrange for reinforcements. Before the reinforcements arrive, please help Duke Ding and the soldiers of the Imperial Court. This is not only an opportunity for you to redeem yourselves, but also for the sake of your families." At this point, Qin Yining bent his knees and bowed. "Everyone is so righteous. I thank you here." When had the common people ever seen a noble lady in the imperial court bow to an ordinary person? In addition, Qin Yining didn't point out their mistakes from the beginning to the end. He always understood that they had been bewitched and found a way for them to redeem themselves. Their gratitude to Qin Yining was even deeper. Everyone nodded and said loudly, "Princess, don't worry. We will definitely guard the city gate and not let the Taitan take a step forward." "Yes, we will definitely help Duke Ding guard the city gate." Not only the common people who were tied up in a row, but even the officials and soap men, as well as the rest of the common people who heard the commotion, were also excited. They shouted loudly that they must guard the city gate and protect their homes. Once people were united, the power they formed was huge. Even if Ji Ziyu had 3 heads and 6 arms, it was difficult for him to prevent people from stabbing him in the back. Now, Qin Yining's impassioned speech had stirred up everyone's emotions. They didn't care who was the emperor and didn't care about the lives of the other people in the imperial court, but they couldn't not care about their families. Even if they had to fight for their families, they definitely wouldn't be a burden to GZU. Qin Yining nodded again and again. He was so moved that he shouted slogans angrily and cursed the Titan. At this time, there were sounds of fighting and killing outside the city gate. The guards at the city gate were ordered to open the city gate wide. The cavalry sent by the imperial court and the 3,000 soldiers and horses rushed in exhausted. The common people were stunned. Qin Yining hurriedly ordered, "Quickly untie everyone. Everyone, go and help. We must guard the city gate. We can't let a single Titan come in alive. Yes. We can't let the Titans come in and harm our common people. Old and young men, get your weapons." One by one, the strong men went to look for tools. Some found shovels, some took hoes, some took door bolts, and even the long iron ladles used at home for cooking. There were also some who were very smart and used the wooden pot lid as a shield. This group of common people looked like a motley crew, but in order to protect their homes, they showed even more fighting spirit than the imperial court's army. They all rushed up and went around GZU's troops to the city gate. They didn't want to let a single Titan enter the city. GZU was the same as Pang Shao. When retreating from a battle, he had always been at the rear. He had never been the first to run. When he cut down a Titan cavalry approaching him with his sword, he turned around and rode his horse into the city, shouting, "Close the gate! Close the gate!" When he shouted, he saw the common people holding weapons. These common people saw GZU riding his horse into the city gate. They immediately used all their strength to push the heavy city gate open. Seeing the Tatar cavalry approaching, even though these farmers hadn't had a full meal for a long time, they were still so tired that they saw stars before their eyes. At this critical moment, they closed the city gates with a bang sound. GZU jumped off the back of his horse. He looked at the common people expressionlessly and with surprise in his eyes. The corners of his lips curled up slightly. Qin Yining and Lu Weiguo quickly walked up to him. Lu Weiguo cupped his hands and bowed. "I am Huichuan County Magistrate Lu Weiguo." "Greetings, Duke Ding." Qin Yining also bowed and said, "Greetings, Duke Ding." Chapter 1100. This was the first time Lu Weiguo had come into close contact with GZU. GZU was a war godlike character on the same level as Prince Zhongshan. He was already worthy of respect. Adding on GZU's extremely handsome appearance and cold as ice noble temperament, it made people only feel reverence for him, without any other emotions. As such, Lu Weiguo did not hide anything and respectfully described the situation in the city. When he talked about how Qin Yining resolved the crisis and made the people change their minds, his face was filled with respect and admiration. GZU nodded and smiled at Qin Yining. "Thank you for your hard work." Qin Yining said, "It's not hard work. I heard from young Master Mu about your situation outside the city, and I was really worried. Do you know the reason why the Tartars suddenly came?" GZU's expression froze for a moment, and he slowly let out a breath and said softly, "The Titan army launched an all-out war against Zhou. Lu Heng worked with his old subordinates and led the Titan cavalry into the pass. The Dragon Legion's commander was turned against by Lu Heng and was trapped by the Titan in Skywolf Pass. More than half of their forces were lost. The Titan army took this chance to enter and occupied all the cities they passed." "What?" GZU's words made everyone feel despair. How many years had it been? The Northern Tianyu, Sky Wolf, Sky Pivot, and Sky Gate passes were like four barriers that were tightly guarded by GZU's Dragon Legion. When the Titan people talked about these four passes and GZU, how could they not feel fear? However, today, GZU's military power was taken away by Your Majesty, and he was idle at home. The Dragon Legion, which was originally a ferocious army, was handed over to an idiot. Moreover, he was a traitor. What a pity for the men of the Dragon Legion. They were Jizu's painstaking training, and they were plotted against by Lu Heng just like that. Although Qin Yining guessed that Lu Heng might work with the Taitan, he did not expect him to do this. Luring the Taitan people to Dezhou was like inviting a wolf into the house. He was using the Taitan people to deal with Li Qitian, but did he not think about how he was going to drive the Taitan people out in the future? Did he want the people of Dezhou to be enslaved by the Taitan? Qin Yining gritted his teeth, and he was so angry that his teeth were itching. Lu Heng had committed a heinous crime by doing such a thing. For his own sake, he did not even consider the life and death of the people. If that's the case, won't Huichuan become the border between Dezhou and the Taitan? Lu Weigui's worried voice pulled Qin Yining back to reality. Qin Yining also looked at Jizu. Jizu nodded. He held the horsewhip that Pang Shao had given him and gestured for everyone to go up the city gate. The situation is indeed dangerous. Looking at the Taitan soldiers gathered outside the city gate, Jizu's voice was still calm. Although it's dangerous, it's not to the point of desperation. I have already sent a letter to Your Majesty to request for more troops. It takes time to mobilize the troops from various places, so I'm afraid we can't count on it. However, other than the 5 armies, the 3,000 armies, and the Divine Arms Army, there is also the Tiger Army. Looking back at Qin Yining and Lu Weigui, Jizu's lips curled up slightly. The Tiger Army led by Wang Yi has a good chance of winning against the Taitan. Qin Yining nodded and said confidently, everyone believes in Duke Ding's abilities. Fortunately, you are here. If it were someone else, the Taitan would have already attacked. At that time, not only will the people in the city be in danger, but if Huichuan falls and the Taitan attacks the capital, how will we deal with it? If that happened, Dezhou would really be destroyed by the Taitan. Lu Weigui and the others nodded in agreement and looked at Jizu with admiration and dependence. Jizu thought for a moment and said, why don't I see young Master Mu? Young Master Mu went to the city to check on Lu Heng's whereabouts. However, I'm guessing that Lu Heng has already escaped. Jizu nodded and said, judging from the recent situation, he should have escaped. Looking at Qin Yining and thinking about Pang Zhao's situation in the capital, Jizu said, this is the place where the 2 armies are fighting. Princess, you are a woman, so you shouldn't stay here for long. You should take advantage of the fact that the situation is not critical and return to the capital first. Lu Weigui nodded in agreement. That's right, Princess. Now that Huichuan has become a battlefield, you will only put one more person in danger if you stay here. You should return to the capital. Qin Yining was a little hesitant. She was worried about the situation here and wanted to help. However, she knew her own weight. If she stayed here and encountered danger, she would have to trouble others to protect her. Now, the most sensible thing she could do was not to be a burden to Jizu. Qin Yining nodded and said, both of you are right. Let's do it this way. I will set off after I have reorganized everything. Jizu nodded expressionlessly, but in his heart, he was relieved. He knew how much Pang Zhao valued Qin Yining. If something happened to Qin Yining under his watch, how sad would Pang Zhao be? He was afraid that they would no longer be brothers in the future. I will arrange for someone to escort you out of the city. Qin Yining smiled and said, there is no need to trouble yourself. I have enough people around me. It won't be difficult to sneak out with me. As they were talking, they saw Mu Jinghu walking briskly up the city gate tower. When he saw Jizu, Mu Jinghu cupped his hands and said bluntly, Lu Heng left the city 2 days ago. The rebels in the city have been arrested one after another, but there could be many hiding among the civilians. If you want to be safe, you have to be careful. Ji Ziyu returned the greeting and nodded. Thank you for the information. Mu Jinghu waved his hand. It's okay. Qin Yining said, then I will go and prepare the luggage. Ji Ziyu and Lu Weigui both nodded. Qin Yining bowed to the two of them again and quickly led his men down the city gate tower. Mu Jinghu followed behind Qin Yining and said in a low voice, Lu Heng has escaped. What do you plan to do? I can't think of a good idea at the moment, Qin Yining sighed and said, until now, I still don't understand why Lu Heng would end up like this. He wasn't such a person in the first place. Lu Heng might be able to achieve his goals one day for power, wealth, and to make himself stronger, but he had to pay a high price. This included his magnanimous heart, as well as his image in Qin Yining's heart. The group of people returned to the yamen without encountering any danger on the way. However, Qin Yining knew that there was a huge hidden danger in this city. He didn't know how Ji Ziyu would deal with it completely. When they reached the side room, Ji Yun and the others went to pack their things while Qin Yining whispered to Mu Jinghu. Young Master Mu, logically speaking, I shouldn't talk too much. However, I can see that you're not in a good mood. If there's anything bothering you, just tell us. Wang Yi and I will definitely do our best to help you. Mu Jinghu was silent, but his eyes were full of emotions. He and Qin Yining were old acquaintances. Back then, before she and Pang Xiao were married, he had been by her side as a bodyguard. Over the years, he had witnessed her relationship with Pang Xiao with his own eyes. He knew her character and trusted her. Forget it. Mu Jinghu's voice was weak. He sighed and said, there's no harm in telling you. That woman and I are completely done for. I don't want to see her again in this life. Qin Yining frowned. Seeing Mu Jinghu so angry and dejected, he deliberated over his words and said, could there be some misunderstanding? I can see that Boss Chio's feelings for you are real. She even gave birth to Yanji for you. A woman is willing to give birth to a man's child. Even if there's some misunderstanding between husband and wife, you should be more open-minded. Mu Jinghu shook his head. You don't know. We've all been used by that woman. She's so cunning and sinister. She has all of us in her calculations. Including this time when she was sick. She deliberately pretended to be sick in order to lure me out of the capital. Qin Yining was speechless. What's going on? Mu Jinghu said, think about the relationship between the Chiu family, a reclusive family, and the Lu family, a prominent family, and you'll understand. Qin Yining was smart. Since he had already reminded her, he had a vague guess in his heart. Without waiting for her to speak, Mu Jinghu said angrily, in the beginning, she tried to rope in Jishi so that she could use Jishi to deal with her uncle and take back everything she had in the Chiu family. Now that Lu Heng has fallen and the Lu family has been dealt with by your majesty, it shows that the aristocratic families have been dealt a devastating blow. It's time for the reclusive families to appear on the stage. I'm afraid that many of the officials in the imperial court are related to the Chiu family. This woman's ambition and desire for power are simply amazing. In the past, we had the same goal, which was to deal with the Lu family together. That's why she did her best for us. But now that the Chiu family has planted someone to be an official in the imperial court, it means that she has joined your majesty's faction. Qin Yining nodded and sighed softly. Li Qitian was the son of heaven. Only when the Son of Heaven made arrangements, the officials in the imperial court could sit firmly in their positions. Therefore, their previous common interests with Chiu Feishan had collapsed after the Lu family was destroyed. Now, the person who shared the same interests with Chiu Feishan had become Li Qitian. When they could destroy Lu Heng and settle the Taitan incident, all of Chiu Feishan's wrongdoings would be completely fulfilled. Tell me, how did her grandfather, who loved her the most, die? Mu Jinghu sneered, you speak as if she's a filial granddaughter, saying that she wants to take revenge and do something. Who knew that now that the benefits are in front of her, she would even shake hands and make peace with the person who killed her grandfather? Qin Yining was even more surprised. You're saying that Boss Chiu and Chiu Yuanqing have reconciled? Yes. Mu Jinghu gritted his teeth and said, this woman is simply too sinister. She has a strong desire for control and is unwilling to listen to other people's suggestions and ideas. She felt that it was dangerous for me to stay in the capital, so she lied to me to come out. She even pretended to be sick and let Bing Tang do a lot of useless work. Now that her goal has been achieved, she naturally wouldn't care about what I think. Chapter 1101. The room fell into a strange silence for a moment. Mu Jinghu slumped into a chair. Qin Yining did not know how to comfort him. Mu Jinghu was not someone who would casually slander others. Since he said so, it meant that this matter really happened. She had previously received a letter from Bing Tang saying that Qiu Feishan's condition was strange. Now it seemed that if she was faking it, Bing Tang would not be able to diagnose it, but she insisted on having a headache. Bing Tang would naturally not know the reason and could only attribute it to a strange illness. Qin Yining felt that there were two reasons for this delay in Mu Jinghu's progress. Firstly, Qiu Feishan did not want Mu Jinghu to be involved in Pang Zhao's matter. Secondly, it might be for the sake of Mu Jinghu's safety. Qiu Feishan was extraordinarily intelligent, and her wisdom and methods were top-notch. She was willing to think of these for her husband, but it did not mean that she was completely heartless towards Mu Jinghu. Unfortunately, Qiu Feishan had miscalculated Mu Jinghu's reaction. She did not expect Mu Jinghu to value loyalty so much that he would rather choose to be a loyal brother and keep his promise than to side with Qiu Feishan just because she was the mother of his son. Thinking about Mu Jinghu's actions, Qiu Feishan also did not expect that he would run away because of her. She would be upset and bitterly disappointed. Qin Yining opened her mouth. Facing a woman who had schemed against her and Pang Zhao, it was impossible for Qin Yining to treat her the same as before. But if it was said that she hated Qiu Feishan, then she did not. It was just that their standpoints were different. Although she did not agree with her, she could understand why she would do such a thing. They would not work together in the future. It was just that Mu Jinghu was pitiful. He had chosen his own wife and did not hesitate to snatch her away to negotiate terms and conditions to marry her. He must be very fond of Qiu Feishan. But the woman he loved deceived him, and even used him. He was not a man who refused to take responsibility, and Qiu Feishan gave birth to Brother Yan. This was really a bad debt that couldn't be settled clearly. Qin Yining shook his head and heaved a long sigh. Young Master Mu, the matter between me and Jishi has implicated you. If it weren't for this, you and Boss Chiu could be an ordinary couple and live a stable life. Mu Jinghu smiled bitterly and shook his head. You don't have to comfort me. I know her character all too well. She is not the kind of person who will live a stable life. Even if you and Jishi's matter did not happen, her character would not change. She would still look for trouble and cause trouble. If I want her to follow me back to Tianji Valley to live a peaceful life, I'm afraid she'll suffocate to death. Qin Yining was speechless. I don't want to bother with her anymore. The more Mu Jinghu thought about it, the angrier he got. He slammed the small table heavily, and the teacups on top of it clanked. Seeing him throw a tantrum like this, Qin Yining couldn't help but sigh. Mu Jinghu wasn't a particularly complicated person. He would act according to his own set of principles and act according to his heart. He was hurt by Qiu Feishan's actions, otherwise he would not talk about his wife like this in front of her. All right, don't be angry. After all, she is Brother Yan's biological mother. Brother Yan is your eldest son. He is innocent. Although you are angry, Brother Yen, you still have to think about it. Mu Jinghu heard this and grabbed his hair in pain. He was obviously confused to the extreme. Qin Yining did not know whether to continue persuading him, because it was the first time she saw Mu Jinghu showing such an expression. She felt bad in her heart too. After all, she regarded Qiu Feishan as her ally. I will never trust her again. After a long time, Mu Jinghu said in a dry voice, I don't care about a rich life. What I care about is her feelings for me. She has been deceiving me and using me from the beginning to the end. This is the most unacceptable thing for me. I also know that Brother Yen is innocent. After I am done with the things here, I will bring Brother Yen to my side and teach him well. In the future, Qiu Feishan and I will have nothing to do with each other. She will go her own way, and I will go mine. Even if I bring Brother Yen to live a poor life, that is the life that we should live. Qin Yining heard this and knew that Mu Jinghu was angry at this time. He was disheartened and did not know how to persuade him. He could only comfort him and said, don't be stubborn. Just deal with it calmly. No matter what, with Jishi and I around, you and Brother Yen will have a home to return to. Mu Jinghu heard this and raised his head to look at Qin Yining's sincere eyes. After a long time, he nodded. Soon, Jingzhe and the others packed their luggage. Ji Ziyu also came to find them. You should leave as soon as possible. While the Taitan people are reorganizing, have no time to care so much, I will lead people to protect you and leave. Qin Yining shook his head and said worriedly, it will be easy for us to escape. But it will not be easy for you to continue to stay here. The people in the city do not have much food to begin with. You will have to stay here for a long time. The food that the people and horses eat will cost a lot. Ji Ziyu did not finish his words, but he understood Qin Yining's worries. The state treasury has been tight for more than a day or two. Your Majesty's money was used to repair the imperial mausoleum and almost all of it was used up. Now that the world is facing a disaster, the people have lost their homes and there are people in various prefectures who have started an uprising due to hunger. Before these riots can be suppressed, the Taitan people have taken advantage of the situation to invade. It was not that Li Qitian did not want to send food to Jiziyu, but that he himself was stretched too thin. Don't worry, I will find a way. Jiziyu did not say much. He raised his eyebrows confidently and ordered people to go out of the city to create a diversion. Qin Yining bid farewell to Lu Weigui and boarded the horse carriage. He led Jingzhe, Liao Zhibing and the others to follow Jiziyu and break out of the encirclement. The Taitan people were tired from the long-distance raid. In addition, they had just prepared to set up camp and their defense was still very weak. Jiziyu's people caught them off guard. During the battle, Qin Yining's group chose an inconspicuous path and quickly escaped. The sounds of fighting and killing gradually faded away. Qin Yining anxiously lifted the curtain of the horse carriage and looked back. He only saw two groups of people fighting. Jiziyu's group was fighting and retreating towards the city gate. There were people in the city who opened the city gate and came out to support them. Qin Yining sighed. We are leaving, but Duke Ding will have to clean up the mess here. This is not your fault. The fault lies in the fact that the Taitan took advantage of the situation. Moreover, your Majesty is muddle-headed. If he had been a little bit more thoughtful, he would not be completely helpless at this time. Ji Yun's voice became louder and louder as he spoke. Liao Zhibing, Meng Qin and the others who were following the horse carriage felt their blood boil and began to discuss with him. Mu Jinghu urged his horse to follow beside the group. His face was sullen and he did not say a word. Qin Yining lifted the curtain of the horse carriage and looked at Mu Jinghu. He could not help but sigh again. Because they were in a hurry and the capital was not far from here, Qin Yining's group camped outside for 2 nights and soon arrived at the capital. However, the scene in front of them made them even more shocked and powerless. There was a vast open space in front of him, with disaster victims lying or sitting all over the place. There were even women who were as thin as bones. Their cheeks were sunken and they did not forget to gently rock a child in their arms. There were disaster victims everywhere in the large open space in front of the city gate. There were even people arranged by the city to constantly patrol the area where the disaster victims were staying. Once they found a disaster victim who had already passed away, they would forcibly take him away, cremate his body, and bury him in the ground, regardless of the wishes of his family. Qin Yining naturally knew that these people were doing the right thing. In the face of a disaster, preventing the epidemic was the most important thing. No one would care about the feelings and tears of a few people. However, such a tragic scene had already spread to the capital. It still made people's hearts turn cold. Wang Fei, let's. Ji Yun's throat was dry. He coughed a few times before he found his voice. Let's go into the city now. Nodding, Qin Yining pursed his lips and frowned as he sat in the horse carriage. He did not dare to look at the tragic scene outside. The city gate was tightly shut. The carriages that came and went were carefully checked. However, Qin Yining had returned to the capital and he had a road permit. Naturally, he was respectfully allowed to enter. As soon as he entered the city gate, he saw that the streets were still clean and tidy. It was as if the thick city walls separated the inside and outside into two different worlds. There was no longer that tragic scene. Qin Yining could not help but sigh in relief. Ji Yun sighed and said, "How good would it be if the whole world was like this?" Qin Yining was silent. Everyone outside the horse carriage was also silent. After a long time, Qin Yining asked Mu Jinghu outside the horse carriage, "Wang Yi is currently in this Wangfu?" "Yes." Mu Jinghu said, "His injuries are not light. He has not attended court for a long time. He is currently recuperating in the Wangfu." Qin Yining nodded. Thinking of Pang Zhao's injuries, he became even more anxious. He lifted the curtain of the horse carriage and urged, "Let's hurry. Once we reach the Wangfu, everyone can have a good rest." Temporarily putting aside the troubles outside, seeing that they were about to reach home, everyone's mood finally relaxed. Very quickly, the group arrived in front of the Yusi Wangfu. The doorman was a trusted aide arranged by Pang Zhao. When he saw Qin Yining's horse carriage approaching, he became alert. But when he saw the person beside the horse carriage, he immediately beamed with joy and told inside, "Quickly go inside and tell them that the princess consort has returned." He then went forward to greet them. Qin Yining smiled as he lifted the curtain of the horse carriage. "You may dispense with the formalities. How is the Wangfu? Has anyone come to visit Wang Yi recently?" The doorman smiled and said, "Princess consort, do not worry. Wang Ye's injuries are improving." He did not mention anything about the visit. Qin Yining had an idea in his heart. Qin Yining alighted from the horse carriage and entered the Wangfu with everyone else. Someone had already prepared a roller coaster. Qin Yining had just sat down when he heard the sound of footsteps coming from the Wangfu. The one running in front was Bing Tang, whom he had not seen in a long time. Beside her were two servant girls, Zi Yuan and Han Xiao. When Ji Yun saw Bing Tang, she first burst into laughter. "Girl, why does your face look rounder after going to the south? Could it be that your days have been too comfortable? It can be seen that Huzi has protected your group well." Bing Tang's face immediately turned red. She spat at Ji Yun, "You only know how to talk nonsense and bully me. Princess consort, aren't you going to make a decision for me?" "Make a decision for what? When did I bully you?" Ji Yun said with a smile. Qin Yining could not help but laugh. He nodded and said, "Make a decision, make a decision. Both of you are people by my side. Naturally, I have to make a decision for both of you. Both of you are already old. You should have been released to get married a long time ago. In the future, it would be very good to return to my side as steward wives. This time, not only did Bing Tang's face turn red, but Ji Yun's face also turned red. The two of them shyly called out, "Princess consort." Everyone laughed for a moment, sweeping away the haze of emotions from the return journey. Chapter 1102. Bing Tang smiled bitterly. This servant has asked the doctor who treated Wang Yi. The external injuries seem to be very serious. Otherwise, with Wang Yi's strong personality, he wouldn't have been lying there for so long without moving. Seeing Qin Yining's frown, Bing Tang hurriedly comforted her, "But don't worry, Wang Yi's body is strong and healthy. He's at the age where his recovery ability is the best. We've already applied the best medicine, and the external injuries will heal very quickly. This servant has also checked Wang Yi's pulse, and there are no major problems." Qin Yining heard this and felt slightly better. He nodded and said, "I understand. Is Wang Yi in the inner residence right now?" "Yes." Everyone clustered around Qin Yining as they walked towards the inner residence. Pang Xiao had already changed his clothes, washed his face, and shaved his stubble. He knew that Qin Yining would be back soon. To prevent her from worrying, he deliberately changed his posture and leaned sideways on the soft couch. This was more dignified than lying on his stomach. Qin Yining's group of footsteps approached. When Pang Xiao heard them, he knew that she had returned. His heart thumped violently. This kind of joy and throbbing was still the same as it was in the past. His precious treasure was finally back. Qin Yining hurriedly entered the room. She walked around the copper three-legged incense burner that was placed in the outer room. She passed through the antique floor-to-ceiling covers and entered the inner room. She saw Pang Xiao sitting on the soft couch with a book in his hand and looking at her. His hair was tied up in a high bun, revealing his handsome face. His white clothes made his face look like it was carved from fine white jade. His fingers holding the book were long and slender, and his joints were well defined. It perfectly explained what elegance was. Especially when he looked at Qin Yining, his eyes were filled with a warm smile, as if he had seen his most precious treasure. Qin Yining met his eyes and couldn't help but smile. She quickly walked to the soft couch and sat down. She looked at him hesitantly. "Ji, are your injuries better?" "I'm much better now." Pang Xiao opened his arms and pulled her into his embrace. Upon seeing this, Ji Yun and the others quickly retreated and carefully closed the door. The group of people stood guard in front of the courtyard door from afar. Qin Yining rested his head on Pang Xiao's shoulder and wrapped his arms around Pang Xiao's thin waist. He breathed in Pang Xiao's familiar and elegant scent. Pang Xiao's tired heart was finally at ease. He couldn't help but close his eyes and breathe in relief. "How's your injury?" "It's best if you lie on your stomach. Sitting like this won't help your recovery." Pang Xiao kissed her forehead several times and said in a low and gentle voice, "I'm fine. It was just a superficial wound." He had suffered so many injuries over the years, so why would he care about this? "However, you refused to stay outside the city and went to Huichuan County. You should be punished severely." Qin Yining blushed and remained silent. Pang Xiao knew that she went to Huichuan County and encountered Lu Heng's rebellion. He blew up the imperial mausoleum and lured the Taiten to Huichuan County. He was so scared that his soul almost flew out of his body. He could only blame his injury for affecting him and preventing him from rescuing her personally. Ever since Mu Jinghu rushed to Huichuan County, he hadn't had a good night's sleep. Even in his dreams, he dreamed that Qin Yining was captured by the Taiten or that she was kidnapped by Lu Heng. Or that she was injured by a stray arrow during the siege. In the end, he didn't think of anything good. Pang Xiao heaved a long sigh of relief when she finally came back safe and sound, and stayed peacefully in his bosom. He bit her neck and slapped her buttocks as punishment when she shrank her neck to avoid the itch. Let's see if you can still run around like this in the future. You encountered such a dangerous situation when you went out. You made me worried to death. Qin Yining knew that he was worried about her. Her heart warmed as if she had drunk a bowl of hot soup in the winter. Her limbs and bones felt warm and comfortable. She hugged his neck and smiled. You're so worried about me and haven't come to find me personally. It's obvious that you're seriously injured this time. Lie down and let me see your wound. Pang Xiao hurriedly pushed her hand away. It's almost healed. I'm still applying medicine. What's there to see? Let me take a look so that I can be at ease. Why are you in such a hurry to see my place? Pang Xiao pulled Qin Yining's hand shamelessly. Qin Yining's face turned red when she heard this. She glared at him and said, "Don't try to get away with it. Let me take a look." She pulled Pang Xiao to turn over and lifted Pang Xiao's clothes. Pang Xiao knew that Qin Yining was stubborn. When she heard that he had been beaten up, she went to Huichuan County to do such a big thing. He had no choice but to let her take a look. He had no choice but to lie down obediently. However, he continued to tease her. Forget it. Since my beloved wife has made such a request, it's not good for me to keep refusing. Qin Yining really wanted to slap his buttocks. She wanted to see if this person still had the energy to talk nonsense. However, when she saw the red and swollen injury from his buttocks to his thighs that had not yet healed, her heart tightened. The flesh was about to be smashed. Her fingertips trembled as they hovered above the wound. For a long time, she did not dare to touch it. How do you feel? Does it still hurt badly? Did you hurt your muscles and bones? When Pang Xiao heard her voice, he felt that something was wrong. He quickly pulled up his pants and turned over, pulling her into his arms. Qin Yining was already full of tears. Clear tears slid down her cheeks. Her eyes were red like a little rabbit that had been bullied and hated. Pang Xiao's heart was about to melt. He quickly hugged her in his arms and kissed her again and again. It's okay. Look, I'm fine now. My injuries are only superficial. The people who beat me up have always known my reputation. They didn't really dare to do anything to me. If you don't believe me, you can ask the doctor. You can also ask Bing Tang. I'll see if I'm lying to you. When Qin Yining saw him like this, and Bing Tang told her about Pang Xiao's situation, she believed his words. However, how could a person as proud as Pang Xiao be beaten by Li Qitian in front of all the civil and military officials in the imperial court? The more Qin Yining thought about it, the more distressed she felt for him. The more she thought about it, the more aggrieved she felt. She could not help but cry. Pang Xiao's heart ached even more. He hugged her and gently shook her body, coaxing her like a child. It's okay, Sister Yi. Don't cry. Don't be sad. Look, I'm all better now. Qin Yining shook her head. He humiliated you too much. I must make him pay the most painful price. Pang Xiao saw that her eyes were bright from crying. Her nose and lips were red. His heart softened. Okay. I'll help you, okay? Don't be angry. Be good. Qin Yining leaned on Pang Xiao's shoulder. After a while, she calmed down and realized that she had lost her composure. She could not help but blush. She quickly avoided his embrace and lowered her head to wipe away her tears. When Pang Xiao saw Qin Yining being so shy, he was both happy and distressed. He scratched her nose in amusement. Okay, you're crying on purpose to make my heart ache so that I won't punish you for going to Huichuan without permission. I didn't do that. Qin Yining rolled her eyes at him. Her nasal voice was strong, and Pang Xiao liked it. Okay. You're right. But you can't do this again in the future. Think about it. If I went straight into danger without saying anything, wouldn't you be worried? Baby, do you know how important you are to me? If anything happened to you, I don't know what I've done for my whole life. Qin Yining was moved. Pang Xiao was right. If she put herself in his shoes, how could she not be worried? If Pang Xiao went into danger without saying anything, she would be so worried that she would not be able to eat or sleep at night. Qin Yining sniffed and said, I know. I won't do it again in the future. Good girl. Pang Xiao kissed Qin Yining's forehead. Qin Yining took off his outer shirt and accompanied Pang Xiao to rest on the soft couch. The two of them lay on one side and chatted from time to time. Most of the time, they talked about trivial family matters. In such a relaxed situation, Qin Yining naturally fell asleep very quickly. Pang Xiao raised a hand and gently brushed aside the loose strands of hair that fell in front of her. He looked at her quiet sleeping face in a daze. They had been separated for so long. She must have suffered a lot outside. Especially now that there were internal and external troubles. It was not peaceful everywhere. She might even starve. Pang Xiao's brows furrowed even tighter. He was now a tall tree that attracted the wind. Naturally, many people were watching him. In the future, he could not guarantee Qin Yining's absolute safety. He was also afraid that someone would suddenly stab him in the back. Qin Yining was also wholeheartedly thinking about him. He was really worried that if something happened in the future, she would disregard her own safety and wholeheartedly only think about him. It seemed that the only way to protect her was to make himself stronger. There were some things that had to be done even if he was against it in his heart. For example, that position. Pang Xiao and Qin Yining slept quietly for the entire day. The servant standing guard outside could not hear any other sounds from inside, and did not see anyone calling for them. They knew that Wang Fei and Wang Yi were resting. Ji Yun sighed in relief. After bidding farewell to Bing Tang, Ziyuan, and the others, she also went to bathe and rest. Qin Yining slept until the moon was high in the sky. She and Pang Xiao each ate a simple bowl of porridge. After washing up, they moved to the bed to sleep. Returning to Pang Xiao's side, Qin Yining was very happy. This was the first good sleep in recent days. Pang Xiao was the same. With Qin Yining by his side, he also had the most peaceful sleep in recent days. The next morning, the sunlight shone through the curtains into the bed and gently fell on Qin Yining's face. Pang Xiao opened his eyes and saw her lying on her side next to him. Her face was very close and her white face was red from sleep. Pang Xiao couldn't help but curve the corners of his lips. He looked at her gently and was reluctant to wake her up. When Qin Yining woke up, it was already late in the morning. As soon as she opened her eyes, she met Pang Xiao's smiling eyes. She couldn't help but smile as well. You're awake. Her voice carried the tenderness of waking up. Pang Xiao smiled and said, I got up early. Seeing that you were sleeping soundly, I didn't wake you up. As he spoke, he leaned closer to Qin Yining and pecked her on the lips. Qin Yining covered her lips with the back of her hand and was a little embarrassed. I just opened my eyes. I haven't wiped my teeth and washed my face yet. What are you afraid of? Don't tell me you dislike me. Pang Xiao teased. Ziyuan and the others, who were waiting outside, heard the movements in the room and went to prepare hot water. Chapter 1103. When Bing Tang and Ji Yun heard the sound, they immediately responded and quietly entered the door with hot water, green salt, and other things. Qin Yining sat up and yawned lazily. It's better to be home. I haven't slept so well for a long time. Pang Xiao smiled and was still lying on the bed. He tilted his head and looked at her. She was wearing soft-soled embroidered shoes and washing and changing clothes with the help of the maidservants. Zi Yuan wanted to help Pang Xiao get up, but Pang Xiao waved his hand and the maidservants didn't dare to come forward. Qin Yining sat in front of the dressing table with rouge on her ring finger. She saw Pang Xiao's movements in the mirror and said with a smile, "I'll help you wash and comb your hair later." "That's good, but I'm sorry to trouble you to serve me." Pang Xiao tilted his head and looked at Qin Yining dressing. She was wearing a light green robe, and her long black hair was scattered behind her. Ji Yun and Bing Tang were carefully combing her hair. Her dressing table had always been in the bedroom, but Pang Xiao hadn't seen this peaceful scene for a long time. His heart was soft and warm. He really hoped that it could continue like this in the future. Qin Yining smiled and rolled her eyes at him. She looked at the mirror and carefully put on her lipstick. She said occasionally, "Did I not pay attention to you before?" Pang Xiao couldn't help but laugh when he saw her delicate and charming appearance. Qin Yining finished combing his hair. She knew that Pang Xiao wouldn't want the maidservants around him to see his injuries, so she asked them to leave. She brought medicine and changed Pang Xiao's dressing. Then she brought hot water to help him wash. Finally, she took a wooden comb and carefully combed his hair. Pang Xiao was sitting sideways, and Qin Yining was standing facing him. This angle was very convenient for him to put his hands around her waist. Pang Xiao couldn't help but frown. "Why did you lose so much weight?" Qin Yining smiled. "I walked a lot outside, so I naturally lost some weight. However, I feel that my body is recovering very well. It's much better than when I gave birth to Zhao Gu and Han Gu. You've been working too hard." Pang Xiao sighed. Qin Yining didn't want Pang Xiao to think too much, so she said, "Young Master Mu told you everything?" "He told me as soon as he came back," Pang Xiao said with some regret. Actually, Blockhead really has feelings for his wife. It's just that when they were in the first year of junior high, I was actually a bit worried, because in comparison, Blockhead was much more innocent. He also had pretty good martial arts, and he was also my good friend, so the possibility of him being used was very high. Now it seems that I wasn't a petty person." Qin Yining used a jade hairpin to fix his hair, and then picked up a strand of hair that had fallen on his shoulder. She sat down next to him and said, "We only heard young Master Mu's side of the story. Perhaps things weren't as he saw and understood, but Boss Chiu really did do something to hurt him, which is why he didn't care about his son. I think that since this matter was caused by us, we should at least help the couple." Pang Xiao said, "Even if we were involved, that woman Chiu Feishan can't be underestimated. Her scheming is too deep. Her many years of ups and downs in the business world have caused her methods to become increasingly ruthless. Perhaps her views are different from ours. Perhaps she can't understand Mu-er's feelings. This is why there is a saying since ancient times that people who walk different paths cannot make plans together. If you want to use your own views to persuade another person to agree with you, unless the other person sees clearly what happened to them, the consequences of just relying on your mouth is very likely to be unpleasant. Husband and wife are more sensitive to each other, so they have more requirements for each other." Boss Chiu's approach touched young Master Mu's bottom line, and made him feel disappointed and unfamiliar. It is unlikely to change his views in a short period of time. Qin Yining said helplessly and sighed, "Although I don't agree with Boss Chiu's approach, and I don't like this person very much right now. But they are husband and wife, and they even have children. Seeing them like this, I can't bear to see them like this." Pang Xiao nodded. I will try my best to persuade him. But right now, the court is in a state of panic. The matter of the refugees hasn't been resolved, and the Titan is attacking Huichuan County. Once the city is breached, the capital will be in danger. The world is already in chaos. I want to see what your majesty has to deal with it. Qin Yining lowered his eyes, and his long eyelashes fluttered. He was clearly angry. After a long time, he said, since we came back from Danfu County, he has not been kind to you. He has been beaten twice. Not to mention ourselves, even outsiders would be bitterly disappointed if they saw it. Now that the Titan is attacking, if he wants to send you to meet the enemy, he will be wrong. I will not let this matter go. In Pang Zhao's eyes, she was like a small beast baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. She was trying to protect him, and it really made him feel touched. Well, I am fine now. Besides, you are not willing to let this matter go. How do you want to deal with him? Qin Yining sneered, I can't talk about dealing with him. He is the emperor. How can I deal with him? But one day, I will let him have a taste of being humiliated in public. Qin Yining was still holding a grudge. Pang Xiao was held on the throne and beaten with a plank. With his pride and the image he had built up over the years, Li Qitian had trampled on his dignity to this extent. Qin Yining would definitely not let this matter go. Pang Xiao suddenly felt like he was being protected. She was clearly a weak woman, but she always gave him the feeling that they could support each other and rely on each other. Pang Xiao had not felt this kind of feeling from anyone else for a long time. This was because no matter if it was his family or his subordinates, they all relied on him. There was no one he could rely on. Pang Xiao held her hand and rubbed the back of her hand with his thumb. He smiled and said, well, whether I can vent this anger or not depends on our sister Yi. Qin Yining's face flushed when he said this. She glared at him and said, you only know how to sweet talk. The two of them had a simple breakfast and continued to stay in the room to read and chat. They talked about the current situation and how Zhou should deal with the current crisis. However, just after lunch, Qin Yining and Pang Xiao were about to take a nap. Bing Tang came to the door and said anxiously, Wang Yi, princess consort. There is a guest outside. A guest? Qin Yining asked in confusion, who is it? Why are you so anxious? Bing Tang said, it's Boss Zhou. Now Mr. Mu has gone to the front hall. Qin Yining's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Pang Xiao inquiringly. Pang Xiao seemed to know what Qin Yining was worried about. He patted her hand with a smile and said, don't worry. Blockhead is not so angry that he will kill his son's mother. However, with his straightforward personality, he would definitely not be nice to Qiu Feishan. Qiu Feishan's arrival was not a trivial matter. Although Pang Xiao was injured, he still had to see her. It was not convenient to let her come to the inner room because men and women were different. Qin Yining ordered people to prepare a wooden wheelchair. He asked Huzi and Tang Xiu to help Pang Xiao sit on it. Under Pang Xiao's reluctant and awkward gaze, they pushed the wheelchair all the way to the front hall. As soon as Qin Yining entered the door, he saw Qiu Feishan, who was dressed like a scholar, wearing a sky-blue robe. Her hair was tied up in a bun. It was the same as when they first met. Qiu Feishan had returned to her usual dressing habits. Although she did not deliberately dress as a man, when she wore men's clothes, she did not seem to be deliberately stiff or pretentious. On the contrary, even if she was a woman, wearing men's clothes was natural and elegant. Mu Jinghu was dressed in a gray cotton robe. He stood at the door with his hands behind his back. It was as if he was from a different world from Qiu Feishan, who was dressed in silk. Perhaps she heard the voices of Qin Yining and Pang Xiao. Qiu Feishan stood up with the help of her maid being. She smiled and said, I heard that Wang Yi was injured. It seems that the injury is not light. Is Wang Ye's body better? Pang Xiao was pushed to the main seat by Tang Xiu and Hu Zi. Although the injury on his hip made him uncomfortable, it was better than walking all the way here. Pang Xiao was a very patient person. At this time, his face was normal. He did not see anything wrong. He only smiled and said, this king's body is well. Boss Qiu's body is also well. Qiu Feishan repeatedly claimed to be sick. Even Bing Tang went to see her for a period of time. Everyone knew that she was faking it. Pang Xiao took this opportunity to mention this. No one knew what he meant. Qiu Feishan narrowed her eyes. Then she smiled and said, it's already well. Thank you Wang Yi for your concern. She turned to Qin Yining and bowed, greetings to Princess. Qin Yining sat down next to Pang Xiao. He only raised his hand, no need for formalities. That cold attitude made Qiu Feishan stunned. Looking at Mu Jinghu's expression, she understood. She could not continue with the afterglow. She could only go straight to the point. After everyone was seated, Qiu Feishan bluntly said, presumably, my husband has already told His Highness and Her Highness. No matter how many reasons there were, the result was that I hid some private messages. I also caused the princess's Bing Tang girl to be so busy. I really feel bad. Bing Tang, who was standing behind Qin Yining, rolled her eyes impolitely. Qin Yining only smiled and did not say anything. If it was an ordinary girl, she would have been too ashamed to show her face in this situation. But Qiu Feishan was still calm. She smiled and said, it seems that Princess is forgiving me. Qin Yining did not want to pay attention to her thick skin. Qiu Feishan then said, in fact, official business is official business, and family matters are family matters. It's just like when His Highness and Panem still had some enmity from the previous generation, but those were all state affairs. In the end, His Highness still married Princess Song, and this is a family matter. I didn't mean it that way. My husband and I have a deep relationship. Yanji is already so old. He will not be disloyal to my husband. Even if my husband does not approve of my thoughts, it will not erase my position. Mu Jinghu stared at Qiu Feishan. His eyes were full of anger. Qiu Feishan sighed, my relationship with you will not change in this life. Wang Yi and I can cooperate now because we have the same goal. There is no conflict. Chapter 1104. Qiu Feishan naturally knew that Pang Xiao was not easy to get along with, but she still felt a little embarrassed when she said those sarcastic words so straightforwardly. Qiu Feishan suppressed the unhappiness in her heart and said, Wang Yi is really busy, how can you forget such an important matter? It doesn't matter if it's not important, let's forget about what we did in the past for the time being, we're here for the future. Several people were silent. In such an awkward atmosphere, Mu Jinghu even wanted to directly block Qiu Feishan's mouth and throw her out. Qiu Feishan did not care at all and continued, now that Lu Heng has colluded with the Taitan to attack Dezhou, Huichuan County is so close to the capital. If it falls, I'm afraid that the capital will not be able to react in time. At that time, won't the people be in a terrible situation? Although Duke Dinghua is a fierce general and has the experience of defeating the Taitan, he was well prepared at that time, and the situation is far from comparable to the current situation. Pang Xiao was not moved at all and asked with a faint expression, if you have something to say, just say it, why beat around the bush? Qiu Feishan did not care about his attitude and smiled slightly, well, in that case, I'll just say it. Regardless of other things, the cooperation between Wang Yi and I in the past can be said to be pleasant. I hope to continue to cooperate with Wang Yi. As long as Wang Yi is willing to agree to go to war, expel the Titan, and eliminate Lu Heng, then I'm willing to privately make up for the military provisions that the imperial court can't provide. At this point, Qiu Feishan stood up. Her voice was full of loyalty, and her tone was very passionate. The imperial court can't take out the money for disaster relief, let alone the money to repel the Titan. When the people are in danger, what do they hope for the most? If Wang Yi descends at this time and removes the foreign threat, not to mention other things, the reputation of the god of war Wang Yi will be even greater than before. Taking a few steps closer, Qiu Feishan cupped her hands. I know that Wang Yi is a great hero with a shrewd mind, so he naturally understands what to say at what time. This is killing two birds with one stone. This is a win-win situation for both of us. What reason does Wang Yi have to refuse? Mu Jinghu clenched his fists behind his back so tightly that his knuckles cracked. This unscrupulous woman who took advantage of the national crisis to negotiate with Pang Xiao was actually his son's mother. Mu Jinghu wished he could strangle her to death. Qiu Feishan confidently waited for Pang Xiao's reply. She believed that with Pang Xiao's intelligence, he would know when to do what, and he would never give up this excellent opportunity to perform. When Pang Xiao's mocking smile hung on her lips, Qiu Feishan was stunned for a moment. Boss Qiu's plan is good. Pang Xiao's voice was casual, but the words he said were not friendly. Let me put it this way. Even if this king has to go to war in the future to quell the Titan rebellion, that is because this king wants to go. It has nothing to do with you, and there is no cooperation between us. If there is not enough money, the imperial court will arrange it. This king does not need Boss Qiu's help. Qiu Feishan was stunned. She had been full of confidence since she entered the door, and she finally understood the situation. Pang Xiao was not a person who would be manipulated by others. She knew how tough he was, but she did not expect that Pang Xiao would refuse to cooperate with her at this juncture. Wang Yi, please think about it carefully. The current situation is really too unfavorable for the people. If you delay any longer, once the Titan breaks through Huichuan, the consequences will be unimaginable. You care about the people. Pang Xiao's mocking tone was even more obvious. How can a person who cares about the world and has a sense of justice not care about the hatred of killing his own grandfather? As far as I know, your grandfather held you in the palm of his hand and carefully raised you. The person who killed your grandfather was Qiu Yuanqing. Now you are still standing on the same side as Qiu Yuanqing. This king really can't see through Boss Qiu's actions. But these are not important. This king also doesn't want to see through it. This king is a boorish man. If he can't see through some things, then there is no need to force himself. People who walk different paths cannot make plans together. Boss Qiu, you don't have to bother to persuade this king. Mu Jinghu stood at the side. When he heard Pang Xiao's words, his face was already red with shame for Qiu Feishan. He was obviously ashamed of Qiu Feishan's actions. Qiu Feishan gradually regained her composure after being stunned for a while. He didn't mind Pang Xiao's mockery at all. His words were like a slap to the face. Instead, he said, Prince Zhongshan is a smart man. Think about it. If you agree to cooperate with me now, you will be able to receive support in terms of provisions after you deploy your troops. But if you don't agree, you may still have to go to war in the future. At that time, do you expect your Majesty to give you food? On the surface, these words seem to be facts and reasoning, but in fact, it was an obvious threat. Mu Jinghu had said before that the Qiu family and the Lu family had gradually completed the transformation after the Lu family's failure. Now that the Qiu family had become a prominent family, the people buried in the court for many years could finally be used. In addition, Qiu Feishan made use of the Qiu family's financial resources and connections. If she wanted to influence anything in the court, there were many people who could help her. If Pang Xiao didn't agree to cooperate with Qiu Feishan now, she had the ability to make Pang Xiao still have to go to war. At that time, it was very likely that the court wouldn't be able to take out the money. If he didn't agree to cooperate, it would lead to an even more embarrassing ending. Enough. Without waiting for Pang Xiao to speak, Mu Jinghu couldn't bear it anymore and said angrily, "Don't you think you've embarrassed yourself enough?" Qiu Feishan was immediately stunned by Mu Jinghu's roar and looked at Mu Jinghu blankly. "You, how could I marry a woman like you? Your heart is full of benefits, and you can use anyone you see. Is this marriage between you and me also something you can use as you wish? How can you say that?" Qiu Feishan finally lost her composure and said anxiously, "You and I are husband and wife. When have I ever harmed you? Think carefully, have I ever done anything harmful to you? Everything I didn't involve you. I also said clearly just now, family matters are family matters, and important matters are important matters. How can you mix them up? No matter how much I did outside, I have never harmed you. Enough. Please go back." Mu Jinghu roared and stepped forward to grab Qiu Feishan's wrist and pushed her out. Bai Ying quickly came to support Qiu Feishan and screamed angrily, "Son-in-law, what are you doing? Our miss." "Shut up. What does it have to do with you?" Mu Jinghu shouted back unceremoniously and drove the two out together. "It's not enough for you to embarrass yourselves. Get lost." Qiu Feishan and Bai Ying staggered a few steps and stood firm with difficulty. Looking up at Mu Jinghu, whose eyes were full of anger, Qiu Feishan's eyes were already filled with tears. Qin Yining was worried that Mu Jinghu would not hold back in his anger and hurriedly asked someone to push Pang Xiao and bring everyone out. Mu Jinghu said, "Go. Don't think of using us in the future. Whether it is Xi or me, we are not marionettes in your hands that you can manipulate at will. I don't want to believe your words anymore." Mu Jinghu walked down the step by step, looked at Qiu Feishan's teary eyes and said mockingly, "Tell me, how much have you lied to me with this mouth of yours? How long have I been your accomplice? Aren't you afraid that Yan Ji will follow your example in the future? Who else can you tell the truth to?" Qiu Feishan's tears flowed down. Mu Jinghu's heart was filled with sorrow and his eyes were red. To avoid losing his composure, he turned and walked to the side courtyard. Qiu Feishan looked at Pang Xiao and Qin Yining, who were calm, opened her mouth and finally squeezed out a sentence, "Goodbye." Then she left quickly with Bai Ying. Qin Yining frowned as he looked at Qiu Feishan's back and sighed, "What should we do? Such a good couple." Pang Xiao also sighed. After all, Mu Jinghu was his brother. It was because he was involved in their affairs that the young couple ended up in such a situation. He really felt sorry in his heart. Qin Yining and Pang Xiao returned to the bedroom, took off their coats, and the two were silent. After a long time, Qin Yining said, "Jishi, I don't think Qiu Feishan will let this go. Maybe she will really use the power in her hands to persuade your majesty to order you to go to war." Pang Xiao nodded, "I think so too. This woman may be sad because of Mu Tu's words, but in the end, won't she still do what she should do? She is a smart and cunning person, she must have a backup plan." Just as Pang Xiao and Qin Yining had guessed, in the imperial study, Li Qitian was sitting behind a desk in a black robe, looking down at the official who was kneeling in front of him. The assistant minister of the Ministry of Revenue, Fang Shuru, was already over 50 years old, but he was still strong and vigorous. When he replied, his voice was loud and clear, sonorous and forceful. "Therefore, this official requests His Majesty's permission to use Prince Zhongshan to temporarily set aside his previous mistakes. For the sake of the present plan, the most important thing is to expel the Tatars from our land. If Prince Zhongshan and Duke Dingbei can cooperate, and with the addition of the Tiger Army's power, the Taitan will definitely be defeated, and the trapped Dragon Legion will also be resolved. Currently, the Dragon Legion was still trapped. Fortunately, there were many of them, and they had been trained by GZU. Furthermore, the Titans' forces were also scattered, so they could barely hold on, and neither side could immediately defeat the other. However, in the long run, the losses of the Dragon Legion would only increase. Wouldn't that be heartbreaking? Li Qitian rubbed his aching forehead. In the past few days, more than one official had advised him to use Pang Shao. Not only the old officials of Beiji, but even his direct subordinates also thought so. He did not understand, why did everyone think of Pang Shao when war was mentioned? Could it be that without Pang Shao in this world, there would be no way to fight a war? Seeing that Li Qitian did not immediately reply, Fang Shuru anxiously said, "Your Majesty, That's enough," Li Qitian interrupted Fang Shuru, "You can leave first. I still need to think about it." Fang Shuru's words were stuck in his throat. He took a deep breath and finally calmed down. He lowered his head respectfully and kowtowed before leaving quietly. Li Qitian did not speak for a long time, still sitting quietly behind the desk, as if he was thinking about the current situation. Chapter 1106. Pang Shao and Qin Yining were also thinking about how to deal with it, but the two of them connected Qiu Feishan's habits with what had happened in the past few days. In the end, they came to the same conclusion. From the looks of it, the chances of Your Majesty arranging for you to go to battle is quite high. If there really is an order, what will you do at that time? Qin Yining pursed his lips and leaned against Pang Shao. The national treasury is empty. Your Majesty's internal funds have probably been emptied for the construction of the Imperial Mausoleum. If you go to the battlefield and you don't give them any food, what will the soldiers eat and drink? In fact, Pang Shao was also worried in his heart, but things had already come to this point. No matter how worried he was, there was no need to show it in front of Qin Yining. It would only make her worry for no reason. Holding her delicate shoulders, Pang Shao planted a kiss on her cheek. "Don't worry, I know what to do." Know what to do? Even if he knew what to do, what could he do? Even the cleverest housewife can't cook without rice. If he let the soldiers go to war with empty stomachs, these people would probably be full of complaints, right? Qin Yining faintly sighed and said in a low voice, "If it really doesn't work, there is a way. The things we hid outside Golden Harbor can also be used to solve the urgent situation. It's not that I haven't thought of the method you mentioned. It's just that with so much silver appearing out of nowhere, anyone would be suspicious." Seeing Qin Yining looking at him seriously, Pang Shao was also worried that she would misunderstand that he was reluctant to use the money from the treasure, so he explained with a smile, "It's not that I'm reluctant to use the money. The money was taken from the people, so naturally it should be used for the people. I'm just considering our own safety, so I want to use a foolproof method." "I understand." Qin Yining laughed, thinking that Pang Shao wanted to say something. "Do you think I don't understand your character? I also want to say that saving people is necessary, but at least we have to protect ourselves, so we can do more things." Pang Shao couldn't help but chuckle. "You're right. I won't act rashly. Don't worry." The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Although the imperial court was chaotic and the war was tense, it seemed that as long as the two of them could gather together, they would be able to find peace. For the next few days, Qin Yining carefully took care of Pang Zhao's body. Perhaps it was because Qin Yining was by his side, but Pang Zhao's mood was very good. His injuries were much better than 2 days ago, which made everyone around him feel relieved. After Pang Shao was beaten in front of the palace hall, he closed his door to recuperate, and no longer participated in the court assembly. However, in the past few court meetings, the most heated topic was the Titan issue. Pang Shao got some news from his contacts. He knew that Li Qitian was having a heated discussion with his officials about whether to use him. Pang Xiao didn't care. He waited for the news calmly. However, many of the officials couldn't remain calm. For the next few days, the originally deserted Wang Fu suddenly had an endless stream of visitors. Even the steward of the Wang Fu and the servant in the tea room became busy. Every day, they had to greet and send off guests. They were very busy. After sending off another official, Peng Xiao heaved a sigh of relief, feeling tired. Qin Yining came out from the inner room and said with a smile, "How is it? Are you tired these days?" Peng Xiao leaned on Qin Yining, who was walking in front of him, and nodded as if he had been greatly wronged. "Isn't that so? It's too tiring to talk to these people. They only care about a few things. I have to break them down and tell them." Qin Yining was amused by him and couldn't help laughing. "So many people visit you. They either want to persuade you to go to war for the sake of the country, or they think that you might rise again. They especially want to curry favor with you, or they want to appease you. I think these people don't care about your feelings at all. There is going to be a war, and you need to fight. They only come here once, as if everyone else is a fool. They are in their positions, and they think of me because they can't think of a reliable way." Pang Xiao shook his head indifferently. "I just think that the situation in Dezhou's imperial court is very sad. Everyone is looking for small benefits, but they don't seem to care and love the people of Dezhou. Do you think that such an imperial court, such officials, can they really lead the people to live a good life?" Qin Yining patted his hand comfortingly. "When the water is too clear, there will be no fish. Hasn't the interactions of the officials in the imperial court always been like this? For their own small benefits, they can give up and sacrifice more important things in Dezhou. In their eyes, they probably only have themselves, and only the shining silver is real. Those people who purposely act like this in front of you have ulterior motives. They are most of the people in the imperial court now. I understand the logic, but I still feel helpless when I think about it." Pang Xiao put an arm around Qin Yining's shoulder and sighed quietly. Just as the two were talking in a low voice, Ji Yun's slightly anxious voice came from outside. "Wang Yi, Wang Fei, Your Majesty's Chief Steward Xiong has come. He has been arranged to drink tea in the front." Qin Yining and Pang Xiao exchanged a look, their hearts jumping. They knew that Li Qitian finally couldn't remain calm. Pang Xiao thought and then flipped over to lie down on the soft couch. She said to the outside, "Go tell Chief Steward Xiong that this king is unable to move right now. If he doesn't mind, invite Chief Steward Xiong to come to the inner compound for a chat." "Yes." Ji Yun quickly walked to the front hall and repeated Pang Xiao's words to him. Xiong Jinshui had always been tactful, so he didn't get angry when he heard this. He had made up his mind to take advantage of both sides. Moreover, it wasn't a secret that Pang Xiao had been beaten. On the way here, he had already made all kinds of mental preparations. He even thought that if Pang Xiao's qi wasn't going well, he wouldn't be angry even if Pang Xiao kicked him, so as to avoid losing his life in the future. Therefore, when Ji Yun said this, Xiong Jinshui immediately smiled and said, "I didn't think it through. I should have gone to Wang Ye's resting place to disturb him." Ji Yun knew that this person was a shrewd person and also knew that he had passed this obstacle. She smiled and led Xiong Jinshui to the inner compound and saw Pang Xiao lying on the couch with a pale face. Xiong Jinshui did not dare to be negligent. He bowed and said, "Greetings to Wang Yi. So it's eunuch Xiong. No need for formalities." Pang Xiao waved his hand and indicated for Xiong Jinshui to rise. He smiled and said, "This king's injuries have not yet healed. It is truly impolite of me to not personally welcome eunuch Xiong." Xiong Jinshui hurriedly said that he did not dare. He said respectfully, Wang Yi, I have come to disturb you this time to convey your Majesty's message. As he spoke, he cupped his hands in the direction of the palace to show respect and respect. Tomorrow is the day of the court assembly. Your Majesty has ordered this servant to inform Wang Yi that you are to attend the court assembly on time tomorrow. Qin Yining frowned in displeasure and deliberately put on a domineering appearance. I naturally have to obey your Majesty's orders. However, Wang Yi's injuries. Chief Steward Xiong, please don't take it to heart. This concubine is only worried for Wang Yi. These days, Wang Yi has been suffering from a high fever that has not subsided. He hasn't even gotten better today. If he attends the court assembly, he will be moved around and his injuries will worsen. What should we do then? At this point, the domineering dissatisfaction turned into a bellyful of grievances. Qin Yining quickly shed 2 lines of tears. Our entire family has sacrificed their lives for de Zhou's court. Even my poor son. Wang Yi's injuries are so serious right now. Instead of letting him rest, you have to attend the court assembly. Is it possible for Chief Steward Xiong to discuss with your Majesty to spare my family's Wang Yi? Xiong Jinshui's forehead was dripping with cold sweat when he heard this. He almost wanted to call Qin Yining the grand-aunt. Please spare this servant. You think too highly of this servant. What is this servant's status? How can this servant have the right to discuss anything with your Majesty? This servant is just following your Majesty's orders. Xiong Jinshui couldn't help but kneel as he spoke. I beg Wang Yi to show mercy. Seeing as we are working together for your Majesty, please don't make this servant fail. Pang Shao hurriedly supported him with one hand. Chief Steward Xiong is also in a difficult situation. Moreover, since the imperial edict has been issued, I will just follow it. Xiong Jinshui saw that Pang Shao was willing to speak up for him, and Qin Yining didn't seem like she would refute him. He couldn't help but sigh in relief. He bowed to Pang Shao gratefully. Thank you for Wang Yi's understanding. Thank you for Wang Yi's understanding. You're too kind. Pang Shao smiled and said, You are your Majesty's personal servant. You have always served him wholeheartedly. To tell you the truth, if your Majesty didn't have you by his side, how could your Majesty be able to do everything smoothly and take advantage of everything? You and I are both your Majesty's subjects. Naturally, we have to understand each other. Xiong Jinshui couldn't tell whether Pang Shao was telling the truth or not, but he knew that he had passed this hurdle. After exchanging some more pleasantries with Pang Shao, Xiong Jinshui bowed and bid farewell. Who knew that when he came out, Qin Yining gave him a little pouch. Inside was an exquisitely carved pai xiu with gold and jade embedded in it. Looking at the carving skills of the pai xiu and the water head of the jade, Xiong Jinshui's heart jumped. He suppressed the curve of his lips that couldn't help but rise in joy. He said with a smile, Thank you, Wang Fei. Don't mention it. I'm a woman. Sometimes, my brain isn't very bright, and I don't consider my words carefully. Just now, I said those words in a moment of desperation. Please don't take it to heart, Qin Yining said with a smile. Xiong Jinshui's heart felt very warm, but if someone said that the Prince Zhongshuan's Fei had a time when her brain wasn't very bright, he definitely wouldn't believe it. He could only say that at this critical juncture, Wang Fei and Wang Fei were still able to support each other. Wang Fei was still able to do things for Wang Yi and never leave him. Even he, a palace eunuch, felt envious of such a relationship. What are you saying? Wang Fei and Wang Yi are deeply in love. You are anxious for Wang Yi, and you are thinking for Wang Yi. It is understandable. This servant admires Wang Yi and Wang Fei greatly, and will not carelessly spread it. Qin Yining thought that if the people around Li Qitian were not more perceptive, they wouldn't have lived until now. She smiled and politely sent Xiong Jinshui off. Returning to the bedroom, she saw Pang Zhao's brow furrowed as though he was thinking of something important. Qin Yining knew that he was in a dilemma right now, so she didn't try to persuade him. She believed that Pang Zhao would make the most appropriate choice. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.